A desperate man wakes up married to a billionaire he's never met. When she offers to save his dying sister in exchange for 1 year of his life, he has no choice but to accept. But in a world of power, deception, and impossible choices, some contracts can't be broken, and some truths can't stay hidden. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button. I want to see how far this story travels. Let's begin. Lucas Reed opened his eyes to a ceiling he didn't recognize. Not just unfamiliar, impossible. The kind of ceiling that belonged in magazines, not in real life. Recessed lighting traced geometric patterns across pale gray panels. Everything was smooth, clean, expensive in a way that made his chest tighten even before he remembered where he was. Or rather, before he realized he had no idea where he was. He sat up slowly, and the room tilted. His head felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it from the inside. The sheets beneath him were silk, actual silk, cool and slippery against his skin. The bed was massive, king-sized at least, positioned in front of floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a city he recognized immediately, Manhattan. But not from street level. This was high up. 40th floor, maybe higher. Lucas swung his legs over the side of the bed and his bare feet hit marble, cold, polished marble. He was wearing boxer shorts and nothing else, and when he looked down at his hands, something caught the light. A ring, gold, heavy, sitting on his left ring finger like it had always been there. What the hell? His voice came out rough, cracked. His mouth tasted like stale alcohol and regret. He tried to pull the ring off, but it wouldn't budge. His hands were shaking. He couldn't remember putting it on. Couldn't remember anything after leaving the hospital last night, actually. There'd been a bar. He'd needed a drink after the conversation with Dr. Mehta, after hearing the number. $380,000. That's what it would take to save Emma's life. Experimental treatment, clinical trial in Germany, travel costs, aftercare. Might as well have been 10 million, might as well have been $1 billion. He'd walked into some dive near Port Authority with $43 in his wallet and a phone with 17 missed calls from bill collectors. He'd ordered whiskey. Then another. Then nothing. And now he was here. Lucas stood up too fast and had to catch himself against the bedpost. The room was enormous. Minimalist furniture, abstract art on the walls, everything in shades of gray and white and chrome. Through an open doorway, he could see a bathroom bigger than his entire studio apartment in Queens. Beyond that, what looked like a walk-in closet. His clothes were gone. All of them. His jeans, his jacket, his phone. Nowhere. Okay, he said out loud, trying to steady himself. Okay, think. You got drunk. Really drunk. Someone brought you here. Someone with money. A lot of money. He walked toward the windows, legs unsteady. The view knocked the breath out of him. Central Park spread out below like a green carpet, surrounded by the jagged skyline of luxury towers. He could see the plaza, the Time Warner Center, the distinctive shape of 157. This wasn't just Manhattan. This was billionaire Manhattan. The kind of place people like him only saw in movies. Behind him, a door opened. Lucas spun around, instinctively crossing his arms over his bare chest. A woman stepped into the room, and for a moment he forgot how to breathe. She was tall, maybe 5'10", dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than he'd made in the last 6 months. Dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. Sharp cheekbones, sharper eyes, pale gray, like winter ice. She looked at him the way someone might look at a piece of furniture that had been delivered to the wrong address. "You're awake," she said. Her voice was clipped, professional, utterly devoid of warmth. "Good. We need to talk." Lucas stared. "Who are you?" "Eleanor Voss." She said it like he should know the name. When he didn't react, something flickered across her face. Not quite annoyance, more like confirmation of a suspicion. "We met last night." "I don't." He shook his head, trying to clear the fog. "I don't remember meeting you. I don't remember any of this. Where are my clothes?" "Being cleaned." She glanced at her watch. Patek Philippe, he noticed, because Emma had made him watch that documentary about luxury timepieces once, back when she could still stay awake through a whole movie. "You should sit down." "I don't want to sit down. I want to know what's going on. Why am I here? Why am I wearing this?" He held up his left hand, the ring catching the morning light. Eleanor's expression didn't change. She walked past him to a sideboard near the window and poured herself a cup of coffee from a silver carafe. She didn't offer him any. "We got married last night," she said. The words didn't make sense at first. They hung in the air like a foreign language, sounds without meaning. Lucas laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "What?" "Legally married. Officiant, witnesses, signed documents. All legitimate." She took a sip of coffee, watching him over the rim. "I have the certificate if you'd like to see it." "That's insane. I would never. I don't even know you." "No, you don't." She set the cup down with a soft click. "But you needed money. Rather desperately, according to what you told me." The floor seemed to drop out from under him. "Emma. Your sister. 16 years old, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, second relapse. Standard treatment options exhausted. You mentioned a clinical trial in Germany." Eleanor recited the details like she was reading from a file. "Cost, approximately $380,000, not including travel or recovery care. You were researching loan sharks when I approached you." Lucas felt sick. Not from the hangover, from the realization that he'd told this stranger everything. Everything. He'd been that desperate, that drunk, that stupid. "You're lying," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Eleanor reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She held it out to him. He didn't want to take it, didn't want to see whatever proof she had, but his hand moved on its own, and then he was staring down at an official document from the City of New York, Department of Health, Bureau of Vital Statistics. Certificate of Marriage Registration, Lucas James Reed and Eleanor Catherine Voss, dated yesterday. Signed in his handwriting, messy, rushed, but definitely his. "This can't be legal," he said. "I was drunk. You can't. This isn't binding." "You were coherent enough to answer all the required questions. The officiant confirmed your willingness to proceed. I have video footage if needed." She took the certificate back, refolded it precisely. "But I have no interest in keeping you here against your will, Mr. Reed. If you want to leave, the door is behind you. Your clothes will be returned within the hour." Lucas looked at the door, then back at her. "Why? Why what? Why would you marry a random drunk guy from a bar? He gestured at the penthouse, at her, at everything. "You're obviously rich. You could marry anyone. Why me?" For the first time, something like emotion crossed Eleanor's face. Not much, just a tightening around her eyes, a faint line between her brows. "I needed a husband. Quickly. You needed money. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement." "Beneficial." He laughed again, harsher this time. "Lady, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I'm not—" "Your sister has 3 months," Eleanor said quietly. "Maybe 4 if she's lucky. After that, the cancer wins. You know this. Dr. Mehta told you this 2 days ago. I'm offering you a way to save her life." The room went very still. Lucas could hear his own heartbeat, loud and uneven in his ears. "What do you want?" "1 year of your time." Eleanor moved to the windows, her back to him now. Beyond the glass, the city glittered in the morning sun. "We stay married for 1 year. You live here, appear in public with me when necessary. Maintain the appearance of a genuine relationship. In exchange, I will cover all costs related to your sister's treatment, trial enrollment, travel, medical care, recovery, everything. The funds will be placed in an escrow account. You'll have access immediately." Lucas's throat was too tight. "And after a year? We divorce. Quietly, cleanly. You walk away with enough money to start over. Your sister will be healthy. Everyone benefits." "Why?" he asked again. "Why do you need this?" She turned back to face him, and for just a moment he saw something beneath the ice. Calculation, yes, but also something else. Desperation, maybe, or determination. Hard to tell with someone who kept their face that carefully blank. "My company is worth $2.3 billion, she said. "My board is considering a merger that would dilute my controlling stake. There are personal complications. Shareholders who believe I'm too young, too unmarried, too female to lead effectively. A husband changes the optics, stabilizes certain perceptions. So I'm a prop. We're both using each other, Mr. Reed. Let's not pretend otherwise." She walked toward him slowly, heels clicking on marble. "The difference is, I'm honest about what I want. And I'm offering you the only chance you have to save the person you love most in the world. So the question isn't why. The question is whether you're brave enough to say yes. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something expensive and subtle, barely there. Her eyes met his, and he saw no warmth in them, no kindness, just cold, clear certainty. If I say no, he asked, then you go home. I find another solution, and your sister dies waiting for a miracle that will never come. Lucas looked down at the ring on his finger. Gold, heavy, impossible to remove, like everything else in his life right now, a trap he'd walked into without seeing it coming. Emma's face flashed through his mind, her smile, gap-toothed and bright, from before the cancer came back. The way she'd looked yesterday in that hospital bed, so small and gray and tired, 15 pounds lighter than last month, hair gone again from the chemo, telling him it was okay, that he'd done enough, that he should stop worrying. She was lying, of course. She was terrified. He could see it in her eyes every time the doctors left the room. 3 months, maybe 4. I want to see her, he said, today, before I agree to anything. Eleanor nodded once. Understood. I'll have my driver take you, but I need an answer by tonight. Tonight? That's non-negotiable. Every day we wait is a day your sister doesn't have. She checked her watch again. It's 7:42 a.m. I have meetings until 6. We'll discuss terms then. If you agree, the money transfers immediately. If not, you leave and we never speak again. She moved past him toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. For what it's worth, Mr. Reed, Lucas, I understand this isn't what you wanted. It isn't what I wanted either. But sometimes the right choice is just the least impossible one. Think about that. Then she was gone, the door closing with a soft, final click. Lucas stood alone in the enormous bedroom, wearing nothing but borrowed shorts and a wedding ring that wouldn't come off. Outside the windows, Manhattan woke up, millions of people starting their days, chasing their dreams, fighting their own battles. None of them knew that somewhere in a penthouse high above Central Park, a man had just sold a year of his life to a stranger. He looked down at his left hand again. The gold band caught the light, throwing tiny reflections across the marble floor. What the hell did I do? He whispered. But he already knew the answer. He'd done what desperate people always do. Whatever it takes. Lucas found his clothes in the walk-in closet. Jeans washed and pressed, t-shirt folded precisely, even his ratty sneakers cleaned until they looked almost new. It felt wrong, having a stranger handle his stuff. Everything about this felt wrong. But he got dressed anyway, because what else was he supposed to do? Walk around Manhattan in boxer shorts? His phone was on the dresser, plugged into a charger he definitely hadn't brought with him. 17 missed calls had become 34, most from the hospital billing department, 3 from his landlord, 2 from Emma. He called her back immediately. She answered on the first ring. Luke? Her voice was soft, tired. He could hear the hospital sounds in the background, monitors beeping, someone's TV playing too loud down the hall, the squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum. Hey, Em. Sorry I didn't call back last night. He stopped. How was he supposed to explain this? Something came up. Are you okay? I'm fine. Where are you? You sound weird. It's complicated. Listen, I'm coming to see you today. Soon. There's something I need to talk to you about. Luke. Her voice changed, got that edge it always had when she was trying to be brave. If this is about the trial, you don't have to. Just wait until I get there, okay? Don't make any decisions yet. Silence. Then, you found the money. It wasn't a question. She knew him too well, knew what he'd been trying to do, scraping together pennies while she lay in that bed watching her future disappear. Maybe, he said, I'll explain when I see you. Luke Reed, if you did something stupid, would I do something stupid? Yes, constantly. It's like your defining characteristic. Despite everything, he smiled. That was Emma, dying of cancer and still giving him shit. God, he loved her. She was the only good thing he'd ever done with his life. Their parents were gone, car accident when she was 8 and he was 22. He'd become her guardian because there was no one else, and for 7 years he'd tried his best. Worked 3 jobs at once sometimes, slept 4 hours a night, Gave up college and career plans and anything resembling a future because she was his responsibility, his kid sister, his whole world. And now she was dying, and he'd married a stranger to save her. "I'll be there soon," he said. "Love you." "Love you too. But if you robbed a bank or something, I'm not bailing you out." Noted. He hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at nothing. The penthouse was too quiet, too perfect. Like a museum where someone had forgotten to put in any actual life. There was a soft knock at the bedroom door. "Mr. Reed?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "I'm Diana, Miss Voss's assistant. I'll be driving you to the hospital whenever you're ready." Lucas opened the door. Diana was maybe 40, dressed professionally but not intimidatingly so. Navy pantsuit, practical heels, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She looked like someone's favorite aunt, which was probably intentional. "I can take the subway," he said. "Ms. Voss insisted. The car is downstairs." "Of course it is." He grabbed his phone, checked his pockets out of habit, even though his wallet was completely empty. "Let's go." The elevator ride down was silent and endless. They emerged into an underground garage filled with vehicles that cost more than most people's houses. Diana led him to a black Mercedes with tinted windows. A driver opened the back door without a word. Lucas hesitated. "This is insane. It's just a car, Mr. Reed." "No, it's not. None of this is normal. Yesterday I was—" He stopped himself. Yesterday he'd been 2 months behind on rent, eating ramen for dinner, watching his sister die because he couldn't afford to save her. Today he was married to a billionaire and riding in a Mercedes. Nothing about that transition made sense, but Diana was waiting, patient and professional, so he got in. Queens General Hospital was 40 minutes away in traffic. Lucas spent the drive staring out the window, watching the city change as they left Manhattan behind. Fewer glass towers, more brick and concrete. Fewer people in designer suits, more people who looked tired. Like him. Like everyone he knew. This was his world. Not penthouses, not Mercedes, not women like Eleanor Voss who spoke in clipped sentences and wore watches worth more than a year of his salary. But Emma was dying, and this was the only way. "Keep thinking that," he told himself. "Keep thinking about her. The rest doesn't matter." The driver pulled up to the hospital entrance. Diana stayed in the car. "Take your time, Mr. Reed. Call when you're ready to leave." She handed him a business card with her number. He took it, feeling the weight of what that meant. He could call whenever he wanted, and someone would come get him, just like that. Like he mattered. He hated how much he wanted that to be true. Inside, the hospital smelled like antiseptic and desperation. Lucas had spent so many hours here over the past 2 years that he knew every hallway, every elevator bank, which vending machines were broken, and which nurses were kind. Emma was on the 4th floor, pediatric oncology. They'd kept her there even though she'd turned 16 last month, because she was small for her age and the nurses loved her. Room 437, door half open. He could see her before he walked in, curled up in the bed, blanket pulled to her chin, eyes closed. For a second he thought she was asleep, but then she opened her eyes and smiled. "You look terrible," she said. "Thanks, you're glowing." Liar. But she was smiling, which meant today was a good day. Or at least not a bad one. "Come here." He sat in the chair beside her bed, the same chair he'd sat in 100 times before. She reached out and took his hand, her fingers thin and cold. The IV in her arm was taped down with that weird, semi-transparent tape that never stuck right. Her wristband had her name spelled wrong. Emma Reed instead of Reed. He'd corrected it 3 times. They never fixed it. "So," she said, "what stupid thing did you do?" Lucas took a breath. "I got married." Emma blinked, then blinked again. "What?" "Last night. To someone I just met." "It's complicated." "Luke, she's going to pay for your treatment, the trial in Germany. Everything. All of it." Emma's hand went very still in his. Her eyes, too big in her thin face, shadows underneath like bruises, locked onto his. "What did you do?" "I agreed to stay married to her for a year. That's it. 1 year. And you get to live. You get to have the treatment. You get to be okay." "Luke, no. No." She pulled her hand back, sitting up straighter despite the wince it caused. "You can't just—" "Who is she? Some rich lady who wants to buy a person? What did you promise her?" "Nothing. It's just for appearances. She needs a husband for business reasons. I need money for you. It's a deal. A fair one. Fair? Emma's voice rose, and immediately a nurse glanced in through the door. Emma waved her off, lowering her voice to an angry whisper. How is it fair that you have to give up your life for me? It's 1 year. It's your life, Luke. What if she's crazy? What if she's dangerous? What if this is some kind of, I don't know, scam? Then I'll deal with it. But at least you'll be alive to yell at me about it. Emma's face crumpled. She looked away, blinking hard. When she looked back, there were tears on her cheeks. I don't want you to do this. Too late. Already married, got the ring and everything. He held up his hand, trying to make it light. It didn't work. We can get it annulled or something. You were drunk, right? That makes it not legal. It's legal. And even if it wasn't, Em, you have 3 months, maybe 4. After that, he couldn't say it, couldn't make the words come out. This is the only way, so I'm doing it. End of discussion. I'm not worth this. Shut up. Luke, I said shut up. He leaned forward, taking both her hands now, holding tight. You're 16 years old. You're supposed to have a whole life ahead of you, college and boyfriends and all that normal stuff everyone else gets. You're supposed to grow up and be annoying and successful and make me proud. You don't get to give up on that because I have to pretend to be married for 12 months. That's not how this works. Emma was crying for real now, silent tears that she tried to wipe away with the back of her hand. I'm scared. Me too. But we're doing it anyway. What if the treatment doesn't work? Then at least we tried. At least we know we did everything possible. He squeezed her hands gently. But it's going to work. You're going to be fine. And in a year you'll be healthy, and I'll be single again, and we can both laugh about that time I married a stranger to save your life. She laughed, a wet, broken sound. You're such an idiot. Yeah, but I'm your idiot. They sat together in silence for a while, hands linked, just breathing. Outside the room, the hospital moved on, doctors making rounds, visitors coming and going, life and death playing out in 100 different rooms. But here, in this moment, it was just them, the way it had always been. Finally, Emma spoke. What's her name? Eleanor? Eleanor Voss. Is she nice? Lucas thought about cold gray eyes and clipped sentences and a handshake that felt like a business transaction. I don't think nice is in her vocabulary. Great. You married an ice queen. Apparently. Do you have to, love her? Is that part of the deal? No. We just have to look married in public. The rest is up to us. Emma considered this. Can I meet her? Why? Because if you're doing this for me, I want to know who she is. I want to make sure she's not going to hurt you. Lucas wanted to argue, but what was the point? Emma would insist. And honestly, maybe it wasn't a bad idea. If Eleanor was going to be part of their lives for the next year, Emma deserved to know who she was dealing with. I'll ask, he said. They talked for a while longer, about the treatment timeline, about logistics, about how they'd handle the travel to Germany. Dr. Mehta came by around noon with paperwork for the trial enrollment. Her eyes went wide when Lucas told her the funding had been secured. All of it? She asked. All of it. Wire transfer, escrow account, everything official. We can start the process immediately. Dr. Mehta looked at Emma, then at Lucas, then back at Emma. How did you... Got lucky, Lucas said before she could finish the question. Dr. Mehta didn't push. She was a good doctor, kind but practical. She'd seen enough desperate families to know when not to ask questions. I'll get the enrollment started today. Emma, we'll need to run a full workup this week to make sure you're stable enough for travel. The trial coordinator in Germany will need all your recent scans and blood work. If everything looks good, you could be there within 2 weeks. 2 weeks. That fast. Lucas felt dizzy. Emma was nodding, asking questions about the treatment protocol, about side effects and success rates, and what the recovery timeline looked like. She was trying to be strong, trying to be practical, but Lucas could see the hope in her eyes, bright and fragile and terrifying. What if it didn't work? What if he'd sold a year of his life for nothing? Stop it, he told himself. You made the choice. Now you live with it. Dr. Mehta left them with a stack of forms to review. Emma immediately started reading through them, her brow furrowed in concentration. She'd always been like this, determined to understand everything, to be part of every decision. Even now, dying, she refused to just be a patient. She was still herself. Lucas pulled out his phone and sent a text to the number Diana had given him. "Ready when you are." The response came back in seconds. "Be there in 10. He stayed with Emma until the Mercedes pulled up outside. She'd fallen asleep again, the forms scattered across her lap. He gathered them carefully, stacked them on the bedside table, pulled the blanket up to her shoulders. She looked so young when she slept, so small. "I'll fix this," he whispered. "I promise." She didn't answer, just kept breathing, slow and steady. Outside, Diana was waiting by the car. She didn't ask how it went, just opened the door and let him slide into the back seat. "Ms. Voss asked me to bring you to her office," she said as they pulled into traffic. "She'd like to finalize the agreement before the end of the business day." "What kind of agreement? I thought we already—" He gestured at his ring. "The marriage certificate is legal, but there are additional terms to discuss. Finances, living arrangements, public appearances, duration, dissolution procedures, standard prenuptial matters, essentially." "A prenup after the wedding. That's not how it usually works." Diana smiled slightly. "Ms. Voss rarely does things the usual way." That, Lucas was beginning to understand. They drove back into Manhattan, but this time they went further south into the financial district. The car pulled up in front of a glass tower that looked like it was made entirely of mirrors. Voss Industries, the sign read in sleek chrome letters. Diana led him through a lobby that could have doubled as an art gallery. Marble floors, abstract sculptures, security guards in suits that probably cost more than Lucas's entire wardrobe. They took an elevator to the 43rd floor where the doors opened onto a reception area that screamed money and power. "Mr. Reed," the receptionist said without looking up from her computer. "Ms. Voss is expecting you. Conference room 3. Diana pointed him down a hallway lined with photographs of Eleanor at various corporate events, shaking hands with politicians, cutting ribbons, speaking at conferences. In every picture, she wore the same expression: controlled, confident, untouchable. Conference room 3 had windows overlooking the harbor. Eleanor stood at the far end of a long glass table, talking on her phone. She glanced up when he entered, held up one finger, "Wait," and continued her conversation. "I understand your concerns, Robert, but the timeline is non-negotiable. If the board wants to see the merger projections, they'll have them by Friday. Yes, I'm aware of the risk. That's why I'm handling it personally." She hung up without saying goodbye and turned to Lucas. "Sit." It wasn't a request. He sat. Eleanor took the chair at the head of the table and slid a manila folder across to him. "This is the agreement. Read it carefully. Ask questions if anything is unclear." Lucas opened the folder. Inside was a document that looked like it had been written by lawyers who billed by the word. "Terms and conditions of marital arrangement," the header read. Below that, pages and pages of dense legal text. "Can you summarize?" he asked. "You'll live in the penthouse for the duration of our arrangement. Your sister will receive full medical coverage, treatment, travel, recovery, follow-up care, everything. I'll provide a monthly stipend of $5,000 for personal expenses. You'll attend public events with me as needed, roughly twice a month. We'll maintain separate bedrooms. At the end of 1 year, we divorce. You'll receive a settlement of $200,000. All medical obligations remain funded in perpetuity." Lucas stared at the document. $200,000. That was more money than he'd made in his entire life combined. "This is real," he said slowly. "Very real." "Why so much?" "The settlement, I mean. You could probably pay someone a lot less to pretend to be your husband." Eleanor folded her hands on the table. "Because I'm asking you to give up a year of your freedom. That has value. And because when this is over, you'll need capital to restart your life. Consider it fair compensation." "Nothing about this is fair." "Perhaps not, but it's what we have." She pulled a pen from her jacket pocket and set it beside the folder. "Sign the last page. We'll have it notarized immediately." Lucas picked up the pen. It was heavy, expensive, probably worth more than his security deposit. His hand hovered over the signature line. "What if I can't do this?" he asked quietly. "What if I'm not good enough at pretending?" For the first time, Eleanor's expression softened. Not much, just a fraction. Then we'll figure it out. I'm not asking you to be someone you're not, Lucas. I'm asking you to show up and try. That's all. He thought about Emma in that hospital bed, about the hope in her eyes, about 3 months, maybe 4. He signed. Eleanor took the document, checked the signature, and pulled out her phone. Diana, bring the notary. Then to Lucas. It'll take 15 minutes to process. After that, the money transfers to the escrow account. You'll have access by tomorrow morning. That fast? I don't do anything slowly. They sat in silence while they waited. Lucas looked out at the harbor, at the boats moving across the water, at the Statue of Liberty small and distant on the horizon. Everything felt surreal, like he was watching his life happen to someone else. The notary arrived, an older man with a briefcase and an official stamp. He verified their identities, watched them both sign additional paperwork, added his seal. 10 minutes, start to finish. Then he was gone, and Lucas was legally bound to a woman he'd known for less than 12 hours. Eleanor stood. You should go back to the penthouse. Diana will help you get settled. I have meetings until 9, but I'll be home after that. We can discuss house rules then. House rules? Privacy, boundaries, expectations? We're living together, Lucas. We need to establish parameters. Right. Because this was a business arrangement, not a marriage. Not really. Okay, he said. He stood to leave, but Eleanor's voice stopped him. One more thing. He turned back. She was standing by the windows now, backlit by the afternoon sun, her face in shadow. Thank you, she said quietly, for agreeing to this. I know it's not easy. I know you're doing it for the right reasons. So, thank you. It was the first genuine thing she'd said to him. The first moment where the ice cracked just enough to show something human underneath. You're saving my sister's life, Lucas said. I think I'm the one who should be saying thank you. Eleanor nodded once. Then the moment passed, and she was all business again. Diana will handle everything. I'll see you tonight. Dismissed. Lucas left the conference room, found Diana waiting in the hallway, let her guide him back to the car. The city rushed past the tinted windows, people living their normal lives, unaware that somewhere above them, 2 strangers had just signed away a year of their futures. When they got back to the penthouse, Diana showed him which rooms were his. The bedroom he'd woken up in, a bathroom, a small study. The rest of the space was Eleanor's. Kitchen was shared, living room was shared, but otherwise they'd exist in separate spheres. Ms. Voss values her privacy, Diana explained gently. She works long hours and doesn't like disruptions. If you need anything, call me first. Don't call her directly unless it's an emergency. Got it. I'm the invisible husband. You're the husband she chose. There's a difference. Diana handed him a credit card. For expenses, food, clothing, transportation, whatever you need. The PIN is your birth date. Lucas stared at the card. Black, heavy, embossed with his name. Lucas Reed. Like he belonged here. I don't know how to do this, he said. Nobody does at first. You'll learn. Diana smiled. And for what it's worth, Mr. Reed, she could have married anyone. But she chose you. I think that means something. Did it? Lucas wasn't sure. Maybe Eleanor had just been desperate enough, drunk enough, crazy enough to propose to the first guy she met. Maybe he was just convenient, but Emma was going to live. That's what mattered. Diana left him alone in the penthouse. He stood in the middle of the enormous living room, feeling like an imposter in a space he didn't belong. Through the windows, the sun was setting over Central Park, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Wire transfer confirmed. Escrow account active. All funds available for medical disbursement. Eleanor. It was real. All of it. Emma was going to Germany. She was going to get the treatment. She was going to live. Lucas sank onto the couch, some designer piece that probably cost more than a car, and put his face in his hands. He didn't cry. Couldn't afford to fall apart now. But God, he wanted to. He'd sold a year of his life to a stranger. He just hoped it would be enough. Eleanor came home at 9:47 p.m. Lucas heard the front door open from where he'd been sitting in the study, staring at his laptop screen without really seeing it. He'd spent the last 3 hours researching her. Eleanor Catherine Voss, CEO of Voss Industries, youngest woman to ever lead a Fortune 500 tech company, estimated net worth $2.3 billion, named one of Forbes' most powerful women under 40. There were hundreds of photos. Eleanor at charity galas, Eleanor testifying before Congress about data privacy, Eleanor shaking hands with the president. In every single picture, she looked exactly the same, controlled, untouchable, like nothing could crack that perfect surface. Her footsteps moved through the penthouse, heels on marble, precise and measured. A pause in what he assumed was the kitchen, the clink of glass, then silence. Lucas waited, unsure if he was supposed to go out there or stay hidden. Diana hadn't exactly provided a rulebook for how to act around your fake wife. After 10 minutes of sitting there like an idiot, he stood up and walked out. Eleanor was in the living room, standing by the windows with a glass of wine. She'd taken off her suit jacket and loosened her hair from that severe bun. It fell just past her shoulders, dark and straight. She looked almost human like this. Almost. "You're still awake," she said without turning around. "Didn't know if I was supposed to wait up or not." "You're not required to do anything except exist here. That's the arrangement." She took a sip of wine, finally glancing at him. "Did Diana get you settled?" "Yeah, she was helpful." "Good. She's efficient." Silence stretched between them, awkward and heavy. Lucas shoved his hands in his pockets. "So, house rules." Eleanor set her glass down on a side table and faced him fully. "Right. First, I work long hours. Most nights I won't be home until 9 or later. Weekends I often work from here. I prefer quiet when I'm working. No loud music, no guests without advance notice. I don't have any friends to invite over anyway." Something flickered across her face, surprise, maybe, or pity. She covered it quickly. "Second, your bedroom and the study are your private spaces. I won't enter without permission. The same applies to my wing of the penthouse. Shared spaces are fair game, but clean up after yourself. I'm not a slob. Third, public appearances. I'll give you at least 48 hours notice before any event. Diana will coordinate wardrobe and briefing materials. You'll need to look the part. Successful, comfortable, like you belong. Can you do that?" Lucas bristled. "I can pretend to be rich if that's what you're asking." "I'm asking if you can be convincing. There's a difference." Eleanor crossed her arms. "My board is already suspicious. Some of them think I'm too young, too female, too unmarried to handle a company this size. This marriage is supposed to stabilize their confidence, not make things worse. If we look fake, if you look uncomfortable or out of place, it defeats the purpose. Then maybe you should have married someone from your world instead of some broke guy from Queens." "Maybe." She didn't deny it. "But I didn't. I married you, so we work with what we have." Lucas walked to the windows, needing distance. The city spread out below them, millions of lights against the dark. Somewhere down there was his studio apartment with the broken radiator and the landlord who wanted him gone. Somewhere down there was Emma's hospital, where she was probably sleeping right now, dreaming about a future she might actually get to have. "I'll be convincing," he said quietly. "I'll play the part. I'll make them believe it." "Good." Eleanor picked up her wine again. "Fourth, Emma." He turned sharply. "What about her?" "She'll be leaving for Germany soon. You'll want to visit before she goes. I've arranged for a private jet to take you both to Frankfurt when the time comes. Diana will handle logistics." Lucas stared. "A private jet?" "Commercial travel is complicated with medical equipment and personnel. Private is simpler." She said it like it was nothing, like chartering a jet was as casual as calling an Uber. "While she's in treatment, you can visit as often as you want. I'll cover all travel expenses." "That's not in the contract. Consider it a courtesy." Eleanor's voice softened slightly. "She's 16 and terrified. She should see her brother." For a moment, Lucas didn't know what to say. This woman who seemed made of ice and calculation had just offered something she didn't have to, something kind. "Thank you," he managed. Eleanor nodded once and moved toward the hallway leading to her wing. "I'm going to bed. There's food in the refrigerator if you're hungry. Help yourself to anything." "Eleanor." She paused, one hand on the wall. "Why me?" Lucas asked. "Really? You could have hired an actor, someone trained to play a part, someone who wouldn't ask questions. Why pick a random drunk guy from a bar?" She was quiet for a long moment, her back still to him. When she spoke, her voice was different. Tired, maybe, or just honest. Because actors want something from you. They want connections, opportunities, a foot in the door. You just wanted to save your sister. That's simple, clean, no hidden agendas. She looked back at him, and in the dim light, her eyes didn't look quite so cold. And because when I asked if you'd do anything to save her, you said yes without hesitation. That kind of loyalty is rare. I needed someone I could trust not to sell me out the moment things got difficult. You don't know me. How do you know you can trust me? I don't, but I'm betting on desperation being a stronger motivator than greed. She smiled slightly, but there was no warmth in it. Prove me right, Lucas. Good night. Then she was gone, disappearing into the shadows of the penthouse like a ghost. Lucas stood alone in the living room, her words echoing in his head. Betting on desperation. That's all he was to her. A calculated risk, a business decision made in the same cold logic she probably used for everything else. He should have been angry, should have felt insulted, but instead he just felt tired. He went back to his room, lay down on sheets that cost more than his monthly rent, and stared at the ceiling until sleep finally came. The next week passed in a blur of paperwork and preparation. Emma's enrollment in the German trial moved forward with a speed that would have been impossible without Eleanor's money. Dr. Mehta coordinated with specialists in Frankfurt, arranged for Emma's medical records to be transferred, scheduled the preliminary scans and blood work. Within 5 days, they had a departure date, next Thursday. Lucas spent every afternoon at the hospital, sitting with Emma while she worked through her anxiety about traveling, about the treatment, about leaving the only home she'd ever known. She tried to be brave about it, but he could see the fear underneath. "What if I don't come back?" she asked one afternoon, her voice small. Lucas took her hand. "You're coming back. But what if... look at me." He waited until her eyes met his. "You're going to get on that plane, you're going to Germany, you're going to get the treatment, and then you're going to come home healthy and drive me crazy for the next 60 years. That's how this goes." "You don't know that. I know you're the toughest person I've ever met. I know you've survived 2 rounds of chemo that would have killed most people. I know you're not giving up now." He squeezed her hand gently. "And I know I'm going to be there with you every step. You're not doing this alone." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I'm scared, Luke." "Me too. But we're doing it anyway." She nodded, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Okay. Dr. Mehta came by later with the final travel arrangements. Emma would fly out Thursday morning on Eleanor's private jet, accompanied by a medical team and Lucas. They'd spend 2 weeks in Frankfurt getting Emma settled and starting the first phase of treatment. Then Lucas would return to New York for a few days before flying back. "Miss Voss has been incredibly generous," Dr. Mehta said quietly to Lucas while Emma was distracted by a nurse checking her vitals. "Most families can't afford even a fraction of what this trial costs. Your sister is very lucky." Lucky. That was one word for it. Lucas thought about the ring on his finger, about the penthouse he was living in, about the woman he'd married who treated him like a temporary employee. Yeah, lucky. On Wednesday evening, the day before they were supposed to leave, Eleanor came home earlier than usual, just past 7. Lucas was in the kitchen trying to figure out the espresso machine, which had approximately 40 buttons and seemed designed to make coffee as complicated as possible. "You're doing it wrong," Eleanor said from the doorway. Lucas jumped, nearly dropping the tiny cup. "Jesus, you're quiet." Years of practice. She walked over and pressed a sequence of buttons he definitely hadn't tried. The machine hummed to life. "It's Italian, temperamental. You have to convince it you know what you're doing." "I don't know what I'm doing with anything in this place. Yesterday I tried to use the shower and ended up flooding the bathroom because apparently there are 6 different water settings, and I picked the wrong one." Eleanor's lips twitched. Almost a smile. "The rainfall setting? Is that what that was? I thought I'd broken something." "Diana didn't show you how to use it?" "Diana showed me a lot of things. I forgot most of them." Lucas took the espresso cup she handed him. It was perfect. Dark, rich, the crema on top exactly right. "How do you remember all this stuff?" "I grew up with it. It's second nature." She made herself a cup, leaning against the counter. "You leave tomorrow?" "Yeah, early flight, 6 a.m. I've arranged for a car to take you to the airport. Diana will meet you there with Emma's medical team. You've thought of everything. That's my job. Eleanor studied him over the rim of her cup. Are you ready? For what? For this. For watching your sister go through an experimental treatment that might not work. For being in a foreign country with doctors who may or may not be able to save her. For the possibility that you've given up a year of your life for nothing. Lucas's jaw tightened. You know, for someone who's supposed to be helping, you're incredibly pessimistic. I'm realistic. There's a difference. But her voice wasn't cruel, just honest. I've been to Germany twice for business. Frankfurt is clean, efficient, intimidating if you're not used to European cities. The medical facilities are world-class, but they're still hospitals. It's still going to be hard. I know that. Do you? Eleanor set her cup down. Because you've been moving at full speed since we signed that contract. Planning, coordinating, focused on logistics. But once you get there, once Emma actually starts treatment, there's going to be a lot of waiting, a lot of sitting in hospital rooms watching her suffer. You need to be prepared for that. Lucas looked away. I've watched her suffer for 2 years. I can handle it. Maybe, but this is different. This is the last shot. If it doesn't work, she trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished. It has to work, Lucas said quietly. There's no other option. Silence settled between them. The espresso machine hissed softly, cooling down. Outside the windows, night was falling over the city. Finally, Eleanor spoke again. I have something for you. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a phone. Sleek, new, expensive. Your current phone is falling apart. Take this one. It has international service, unlimited data, and Diana's number programmed in. If you need anything while you're there, anything at all, call her. She'll handle it. Lucas took the phone. It was warm from being in her pocket. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did. I need to be able to reach you. This is practical, not generous. But the way she said it, quick, defensive, made him think maybe it was a little bit generous. Maybe. Thank you. Eleanor nodded and moved toward the hallway. Then she stopped, turned back. Lucas, when you come back next week, we have our first public appearance, a charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum, Friday night. It's important. I'll be there. It's not just about being there, it's about being believable. My entire board will be present. They'll be watching us, looking for cracks in the story. We need to be perfect. Lucas met her eyes. I told you I'd be convincing. I meant it. Then I'll see you Friday. She paused. Good luck in Germany. I hope it works. She disappeared into her wing before he could respond. Lucas stood in the kitchen holding the expensive phone and the empty espresso cup, trying to figure out if that had been concern in her voice or just more calculation. With Eleanor, it was impossible to tell. Thursday morning came too fast. Lucas woke up at 4, packed his small bag, and met the car downstairs at 5. Diana was already at the private terminal when they arrived, clipboard in hand, coordinating with the medical team like a general planning a military operation. Emma was wheeled in by ambulance at 5:30, looking small and pale in the wheelchair, but smiling when she saw Lucas. Fancy, she said, looking at the sleek private jet waiting on the tarmac. Your wife really went all out. She's not... Lucas stopped himself. Right, she was his wife. That was the whole point. Yeah, she's got resources. Emma grabbed his hand as they helped her onto the plane. I'm glad you're here. Where else would I be? The flight was long, smooth, surreal. Emma slept most of the way, knocked out by medication. Lucas sat in the leather seat across from her, watching her breathe, trying not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. The medical team, 2 nurses and a physician's assistant, monitored her vitals constantly, professional and calm. Diana had stayed in New York, but had arranged everything perfectly. There was food, water, blankets, anything they could need. They landed in Frankfurt just after noon local time. A car was waiting, and within an hour Emma was being admitted to the university hospital, where Dr. Klaus Weber, the trial's lead investigator, met them personally. Mr. Reed, he said, shaking Lucas's hand with a firm grip. German accent, but his English was perfect. Welcome. Your sister's case file is remarkable. We're very hopeful. Hopeful, not certain, not confident, just hopeful. The next 2 weeks were exactly what Eleanor had warned him about. Waiting. Emma underwent scan after scan, test after test. They adjusted her medication, monitored her response, prepared her body for the intense treatment protocol ahead. Lucas stayed in a hotel 3 blocks from the hospital, courtesy of Eleanor's credit card, and spent every waking hour in Emma's room. She was brave about it, but he could see the toll it took. The fear when they wheeled her into the MRI machine. The exhaustion after each blood draw. The quiet moments when she thought he wasn't looking and let her mask slip. On the 10th day, Dr. Weber started the first round of treatment. Lucas held Emma's hand while they inserted the IV, while the experimental drug dripped into her veins, while she tried not to cry from the pain that came after. "I'm okay," she kept saying. "I'm okay." She wasn't okay, but she was alive, and that was enough. Lucas called Diana twice that week, once to extend his hotel stay and once to ask about Emma's follow-up appointments. Both times, Diana handled everything smoothly, efficiently. He didn't call Eleanor, didn't even text. She'd made it clear this was a business arrangement, and business didn't require check-ins. But on the 14th night, after Emma had finally fallen asleep, and Lucas was sitting in his hotel room staring at nothing, his phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. "How is she?" Lucas stared at the screen for a long moment before typing back, holding on. "Treatment is rough, but she's tough." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "You need to come back tomorrow. The gala is Friday. I've arranged your flight." Right. The gala. The first test of their fake marriage. He'd almost forgotten. "I'll be there," he typed. "Good. Diana will brief you on the flight. Don't be late." That was it. No "glad Emma's okay" or "take care of yourself." Just logistics and expectations. Lucas shouldn't have been disappointed. This was who Eleanor was, cold, efficient, focused on business. He'd known that from day one, but some stupid part of him had hoped for more. He flew back to New York the next morning, leaving Emma in the capable hands of Dr. Weber's team. She cried when he left, trying to hide it but failing. "Come back soon," she whispered, hugging him tight. 2 days. 3 at most. Then I'm back here. Promise? Promise. The flight home was exhausting. Lucas slept through most of it, waking only when Diana, who'd inexplicably been on the plane like she'd teleported from New York to Frankfurt just to brief him, touched his shoulder gently. "Mr. Reed, we need to talk about tomorrow night." She handed him a folder. Inside were photos of Eleanor at previous events, guest lists, background information on the board members who'd be there, and a detailed schedule for the evening. "You'll arrive together at 7, Diana explained. Cocktails from 7 to 8, dinner from 8 to 9:30, dancing and mingling after. You'll need to stay close to Ms. Voss the entire evening. Hold her hand, touch her back, laugh at her jokes. Look like a man who's in love with his wife." I don't know if I can pull that off." "You have to." Diana's voice was kind but firm. "There's a man named Robert Hawthorne. He's the chairman of the board and Eleanor's biggest critic. He's already questioning the marriage, asking why it happened so suddenly. If he finds proof it's fake, he'll use it to force her out. You understand what that means?" Lucas understood. It meant Eleanor would lose everything she'd built, and Emma would lose her funding. "I won't screw it up," he said. "Good, because Eleanor won't get a second chance." They landed at JFK just after 8 p.m. Diana dropped him at the penthouse with instructions to be ready by 6:30 tomorrow evening. Eleanor wasn't home. Working late, Diana said. So Lucas showered, ate something from the refrigerator that might have been gourmet leftovers or might have been regular food made fancy, and collapsed into bed. He dreamed about Emma in that hospital bed, hooked up to machines, asking him if she was going to die. He woke up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat and couldn't fall back asleep. Friday evening arrived faster than he wanted. Diana came by at 5 with a garment bag containing a tuxedo that fit him perfectly despite never having been measured. She also brought a stylist who did something to his hair that made him look like he belonged in a magazine. The whole process felt like being prepared for someone else's life. Eleanor emerged from her wing at 6:25, and Lucas forgot how to breathe. She wore a dark green dress that hugged every curve. Her hair swept up in something elegant and complicated. Diamonds at her ears and throat. She looked like money and power and danger all wrapped into one impossible package. "You clean up well," she said, giving him a once-over. "You too. I mean, you look—" He fumbled for words. "Nice. Nice." Her lips quirked. "I'll take it. Ready?" "As I'll ever be." The car ride to the Met was silent. Eleanor spent the entire time checking her phone, firing off emails, her face lit by the blue glow of the screen. Lucas watched the city pass by outside, trying to calm his racing heart. "Nervous?" she asked without looking up. "Terrified." "Good. Use it. Nervous people act more genuine." She finally put the phone away. "Remember, we met 6 months ago at a tech conference. You were consulting on user experience design. We hit it off immediately. The wedding was small because I hate big ceremonies. Any questions they ask, keep your answers short and redirect back to me. I'll handle the details." "What if someone asks something I don't know?" "Then you laugh and say I'm the brains of this relationship. They'll believe it." She looked at him directly for the first time since getting in the car. "Lucas, this is important. Don't freeze up. Don't look uncomfortable. Just stay close to me and follow my lead." The car pulled up to the museum. Through the windows, Lucas could see the red carpet, the photographers, the crowd of beautiful people in expensive clothes. His stomach dropped. "I can't do this," he said. "Yes, you can." "Eleanor, I don't belong in there." She reached across the seat and took his hand. Her fingers were cold, her grip firm. "Listen to me. You're not Lucas Reed from Queens tonight. You're Lucas Reed, husband to Eleanor Voss, consultant, someone who has every right to be here. You believe that? They'll believe it. Understand?" He looked down at their joined hands. Her wedding ring matched his. Simple gold, elegant, like they'd chosen them together. "Okay," he said quietly. "Good." She squeezed once, then let go. "Let's go show them what a perfect marriage looks like." The door opened. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Eleanor stepped out gracefully, and Lucas followed, his heart pounding so hard he thought everyone could probably hear it. She waited for him on the red carpet, and when he reached her side, she slid her arm through his like it was the most natural thing in the world, like they'd done this 1,000 times. "Smile," she murmured, "and whatever you do, don't let go." So Lucas smiled, and didn't let go, and stepped into a world where one wrong move could cost them everything. The cameras kept flashing as they walked through the entrance of the Metropolitan Museum. Lucas kept his expression neutral, the way Eleanor had told him to. But inside he was screaming. Every face they passed looked like it cost $1 million to maintain. Every conversation he overheard was about mergers, acquisitions, stock prices, things he had no context for. This wasn't his world. This wasn't even his galaxy. Eleanor's hand tightened on his arm. A warning. Stay focused. They entered the Great Hall, and Lucas's breath caught. The space had been transformed into something out of a movie. Crystal chandeliers hanging from vaulted ceilings, ice sculptures, tables draped in white silk, flowers everywhere. Expensive ones, the kind Emma used to point out in magazine spreads. Hundreds of people in tuxedos and gowns moved through the space like they owned it. Maybe they did. "Eleanor!" A woman in a silver dress swept toward them, champagne glass in hand. "Darling, you look stunning, and this must be the mysterious husband we've all been dying to meet." Eleanor's smile was perfect. Warm, but not too warm. Professional. "Catherine, this is Lucas." "Lucas, Catherine Whitmore. She sits on our board." Catherine extended her hand and Lucas shook it, trying to match her confident grip. "Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Whitmore." "Please, Catherine." She looked him up and down with the kind of assessment that made him feel like a car being inspected before purchase. "So tell me, how did you two meet? Eleanor's been so secretive about the whole thing." Eleanor's hand moved to the small of Lucas's back, a gesture that looked affectionate but felt like another warning. "At a tech conference in San Francisco," she said smoothly. "Lucas was consulting on user interface design. We ended up in the same panel discussion and argued about data visualization for 45 minutes. "Argued?" Catherine raised an eyebrow. "I said her presentation slides were too cluttered," Lucas said, surprising himself. The lie came easier than he expected. "She told me I didn't understand the complexity of enterprise software. We were both right. Eleanor laughed, and it almost sounded genuine. He's still insufferable about it. Sounds like true love. Catherine's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Well, congratulations to you both. I'm sure Robert will want to meet you, Lucas. He's been very curious about this sudden marriage. The way she said it made Lucas's stomach drop. Very curious. That wasn't good. Catherine drifted away, and Eleanor leaned closer, her lips near his ear. That was good. Keep doing that. Who's Robert? The man who wants my job. She grabbed 2 champagne glasses from a passing waiter and handed him one. Don't drink too much. We need you sharp. They moved through the crowd, and Eleanor introduced him to person after person. Board members, investors, competitors, politicians. Lucas shook hands until his palm hurt, smiled until his face felt frozen, made small talk about things he barely understood. Eleanor never left his side, her hand always somewhere on him, his arm, his back, his shoulder. To anyone watching, they looked like a couple who couldn't stand to be apart. Lucas was starting to understand why she'd chosen him. An actor would have been too polished, too perfect, but he was rough around the edges, obviously uncomfortable in this world. And somehow that made it more believable, like Eleanor had fallen for someone real instead of another corporate clone. They were talking to a tech investor about blockchain, Lucas nodding along like he knew what half the words meant, when a man's voice cut through the conversation. Eleanor, I've been looking for you. Lucas turned and immediately knew this was Robert Hawthorne. Mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit that probably cost more than the jet that brought Lucas back from Germany. But it wasn't the clothes that gave him away. It was the way he looked at Eleanor, like she was a problem he was working to solve. Robert, Eleanor's voice went cooler. I didn't realize you'd arrived. Just got here. Fashionably late, as they say. His eyes shifted to Lucas, sharp and assessing. And you must be the husband, Robert Hawthorne, board chairman. Lucas shook his hand. The grip was deliberately too firm, a dominance play. Lucas Reed, nice to meet you. Reed, Robert said the name like he was tasting it. Interesting. I don't recall seeing your name on any consulting rosters in the tech industry. I keep a low profile, small clients, mostly startups. How convenient. Robert's smile was all teeth. And how long have you and Eleanor been seeing each other? 6 months, Eleanor said before Lucas could answer. We kept it private. You know how the media can be. Yes, privacy is important. Robert took a sip of his drink. Especially when timing is so convenient. The board votes on the merger next month, and suddenly you're married. Some might call that suspicious. Some might call it none of their business, Eleanor said coldly. Everything about this company is my business, Eleanor. You know that. Robert's eyes never left Lucas. Tell me, Mr. Reed, what is it about Eleanor that won your heart? Was it her charm, her warmth, or perhaps her bank account? Lucas felt Eleanor go rigid beside him. The entire conversation around them seemed to stop. People pretending not to listen while absolutely listening. He could have played it safe. Could have stammered something generic and let Eleanor handle it. But looking at Robert's smug face, at the way he was trying to humiliate both of them, something snapped. You want the truth? Lucas said quietly. The first time I met Eleanor, I thought she was the coldest person I'd ever encountered. No small talk, no warmth, just straight to business. And I'm not going to lie, it was intimidating as hell. Robert's smile widened. He thought he'd won. But then she started talking about her work, Lucas continued. About the company she built from nothing, about fighting every day to prove she belonged in rooms full of men who wanted her to fail. And I realized the coldness wasn't who she was. It was armor, protection against people who'd take any weakness and use it to destroy her. Eleanor's hand found his, fingers threading together. He didn't know if it was part of the act or something else. What won my heart? Lucas looked at Eleanor, and for a moment he forgot this was fake, forgot he was playing a part. She fights harder than anyone I've ever met. She doesn't apologize for being brilliant, and she sure as hell doesn't need my approval or yours or anyone else's. That's what I fell in love with. Silence stretched across their corner of the room. Robert's smile had disappeared. Well, he said finally, that's quite the speech. It's the truth. Lucas met his eyes steadily. Believe it or don't believe it. Doesn't change what we are. Robert studied him for a long moment, then turned back to Eleanor. We'll see. Enjoy your evening, both of you. He walked away, and the crowd slowly resumed their conversations. Lucas realized he was still holding Eleanor's hand. He started to pull away, but she held on. "Don't," she murmured. "Not yet. They're still watching." So they stood there, hands linked, while people pretended to mingle and actually gossiped. Lucas could feel the weight of their stares, their judgment, their speculation. "Did I just make everything worse?" he asked quietly. "No." Eleanor's voice was strange, softer than usual. "You did exactly right." A bell chimed, signaling dinner. Eleanor led him toward the dining room, still holding his hand. They were seated at a table with 6 other people, more board members, more tests, more performance. Lucas made it through 3 courses of food he couldn't identify, answered questions about his background with carefully constructed lies, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. Eleanor played her part perfectly, touching his arm when she made a point, leaning close to whisper comments about the other guests, looking at him like he was the most interesting person in the room. By the time dessert arrived, Lucas's face hurt from smiling. After dinner came dancing. The orchestra started playing something classical and elegant, and couples moved onto the floor. Eleanor stood, offering her hand. "I don't know how to dance," Lucas said. "I'll lead. Just follow." They moved onto the floor, and Eleanor placed his hand on her waist, took his other hand in hers, and started guiding him through the steps. Lucas stumbled twice in the first 30 seconds. "Sorry," he muttered. "Stop apologizing. You're doing fine." She moved closer, making the steps smaller, easier to follow. "Just listen to the music, feel the rhythm." Lucas tried. He really did. But he was hyper-aware of everything, her hand in his, the silk of her dress under his palm, the way she smelled like something expensive and subtle. Other couples swept past them, graceful and practiced. He felt like an idiot. "What you said to Robert," Eleanor said quietly. "Did you mean any of it? Does it matter?" "I'm curious." Lucas met her eyes. This close, he could see flecks of darker gray in the lighter shade, like storm clouds. "Some of it. The part about you fighting harder than anyone I've met. That's true. The rest was just good acting. You're a better actor than I expected." "Yeah, well, desperation makes you good at a lot of things." Something flickered across her face. Hurt, maybe. But it was gone before he could be sure. "Right, of course." The song ended and another one started. Eleanor pulled away slightly. "We should mingle more. There are people I need you to meet." They spent the next hour working the room. Lucas met so many people his brain stopped retaining names. Everyone wanted to know about him, about them, about how this supposedly successful consultant had stayed so far under the radar. Eleanor deflected most of the questions, but Lucas could feel the suspicion building. These people weren't stupid. They knew something was off. Around 11, Lucas excused himself to find a bathroom. He needed a break from the performance, from the constant scrutiny, from pretending to be someone he wasn't. The bathroom was mercifully empty. All marble and gold fixtures and mirrors that showed him exactly how exhausted he looked. He splashed cold water on his face, careful not to ruin whatever the stylist had done to his hair. When he came out, a man was waiting in the hallway. Not Robert this time. Someone younger, maybe early 40s, with sharp features and calculating eyes. "Mr. Reed, mind if we talk?" Lucas's defenses went up immediately. "Depends on what about." "I'm Marcus Webb. I work in private investigations." He handed Lucas a business card. "I've been hired to look into your marriage to Ms. Voss." Lucas's blood ran cold. "By who?" "That's confidential. But I wanted to give you a heads up, professional courtesy. I'm very good at what I do. If there's anything to find, I'll find it." Marcus smiled, but it was all edges. "So if this marriage isn't what it appears to be, you might want to come clean now, save everyone the trouble." "It's exactly what it appears to be." "Is it?" Marcus tilted his head. "Because I've done some preliminary research. You were broke 3 weeks ago, behind on rent, behind on bills, sister dying of cancer, then suddenly you're married to a billionaire and all your problems are solved. That's quite the fairy tale." Lucas forced himself to stay calm. "Sometimes people get lucky." "Luck. Right." Marcus pocketed his hands. "Here's what I think. I think Ms. Voss needed a husband for business reasons and you needed money. I think this is a transaction, not a marriage. And when I prove it, Ms. Voss loses everything. Her company, her reputation, her credibility, all of it. Gone. You're wrong. Am I? Marcus stepped closer. Tell me, Mr. Reed, if you love her so much, why are you staying in separate bedrooms? Why did you fly to Germany alone while she stayed here working? Why has no one in your old neighborhood seen you together? Not once. Not ever. Lucas's mind raced. How did he know about Germany? About the bedrooms? Had someone been watching them? People can believe whatever they want, Lucas said carefully. Doesn't make it true. No, but evidence makes it true. And I'm going to find that evidence. Marcus turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Your sister, Emma, right? She's currently in Frankfurt, enrolled in an experimental cancer trial funded entirely by Ms. Voss. Must be nice having a billionaire pay your family's medical bills. Some might call that a conflict of interest. Others might call it what it really is. A bribe. Rage flooded through Lucas so fast he barely registered moving. 1 second Marcus was standing there smirking. The next Lucas had him by the collar, backed against the wall. You leave my sister out of this, he said, voice low and dangerous. Whatever problem you have with me or Eleanor, fine. But Emma has nothing to do with it. She's 16 years old and fighting for her life. You bring her into this, you use her suffering as some kind of leverage, and I swear I will make you regret it. Marcus didn't look scared. If anything, he looked satisfied. There it is, the real Lucas Reed, not the polished consultant, just a desperate man who'd do anything to save his sister, including fraud. Lucas let go, stepping back before he did something stupid. Get out of here. I'm leaving, but I'll be seeing you again, Mr. Reed. Count on it. Marcus straightened his jacket and walked away, whistling. Lucas stood in the empty hallway, hands shaking, heart pounding. They knew, or suspected. And if this Marcus Webb was as good as he claimed, it was only a matter of time before he found proof. Lucas needed to tell Eleanor, needed to warn her. But when he got back to the main room, he couldn't find her. He searched the crowd, panic rising, until finally he spotted her on a balcony overlooking the museum's sculpture garden. She was alone, standing at the railing, her back to the party. He stepped outside. The night air was cool, almost cold. Eleanor didn't turn around. We have a problem, Lucas said. I know. Robert hired a private investigator. Her voice was flat. Marcus Webb. Former FBI, very expensive, never fails a case. How do you... Catherine told me. Apparently she thought I should know what Robert's planning. Eleanor finally turned to face him, and her careful mask had cracked. She looked tired, scared. He's going to tear apart our lives, Lucas. He'll find something. He always does. Then we make sure there's nothing to find. It's too late for that. You were broke and desperate. I married you 3 days after we met. Emma's treatment is funded entirely by me. The timeline is suspicious, the circumstances are suspicious, everything about this screams fraud. She laughed bitterly. I thought I could control this, thought I was smart enough to make it work, but I underestimated how much Robert wants to destroy me. Lucas moved to the railing beside her. Below them, the sculpture garden was lit by soft lights, peaceful and quiet. Nothing like the chaos inside. What happens if he proves it's fake? Lucas asked. The board votes me out. Robert takes over as CEO. The merger goes through on his terms, and I lose controlling interest in the company I built from nothing. Eleanor's hands gripped the railing so hard her knuckles went white. 15 years of work, gone, because I was stupid enough to think I could outmaneuver him. And Emma? Silence. Then, the contract is legally binding. The escrow account is in her name. Even if the marriage is exposed as fraud, the money is hers. She gets the treatment regardless. Lucas should have felt relief. Emma was safe. That was all that mattered. But looking at Eleanor's face, at the devastation in her eyes, all he felt was guilt. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? You kept up your end of the bargain. You were convincing tonight. That speech you gave Robert was perfect. Almost made me believe it myself. She smiled, sad and tired. But it won't be enough. Webb will dig until he finds something, and when he does, this all falls apart. Then we don't let him find anything. Lucas, I'm serious. We make this real, or at least real enough that there's no evidence to prove otherwise. He turned to face her fully. You said we need to be believable. Fine. Let's be believable. Move into the same bedroom. Go places together. Act like an actual couple instead of business partners. Make it impossible for anyone to prove this isn't genuine. Eleanor stared at him. You're suggesting we actually pretend to be in love. I'm suggesting we commit to the performance. All in. No half measures. Lucas's voice was steady now, determined. You saved Emma's life. I'm not going to let some private investigator destroy yours because we didn't try hard enough. Why? Eleanor asked softly. Why would you do that? You could walk away right now. Emma's treatment is secure. You don't owe me anything. Lucas thought about that. About the woman standing in front of him who everyone thought was made of ice, who worked 18-hour days, who'd married a stranger because she was desperate and out of options. About the way she'd arranged the private jet for Emma without being asked. The way she'd texted him in Germany to check on his sister. The way she'd said, I hope it works, like she actually meant it. Because you're not as cold as everyone thinks, he said finally. And because nobody should have to fight this hard alone. Eleanor's eyes shimmered just for a second. Then she blinked and the moment passed. You have no idea what you're signing up for. Probably not, but I'm doing it anyway. She studied his face for a long moment, like she was trying to figure out if he was serious. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay. All in. All in, Lucas agreed. They stood there on the balcony, the sounds of the party drifting out through the open doors, and made a silent pact. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Not because they wanted to, but because they didn't have any other choice. Eleanor straightened her shoulders, visibly pulling herself together. We should go back inside. People will wonder where we went. Let them wonder. Newlyweds sneak off at parties all the time, right? The corner of her mouth lifted, almost a smile. I suppose they do. They walked back inside together, and Lucas slipped his arm around her waist. She leaned into him slightly, her head resting against his shoulder for just a second. To anyone watching, they looked like a couple in love, stealing a moment alone. The rest of the night passed in a blur. More conversations, more dancing, more performing. But something had shifted between them. When Eleanor laughed at something he said, it didn't feel quite as calculated. When he touched her back, she didn't flinch away. They were still acting, but maybe the lines were starting to blur. They left the gala just after midnight, exhausted and drained. In the car, Eleanor kicked off her heels and let her head fall back against the seat. That was brutal, she said. Yeah, but we survived. Barely. She glanced at him. Thank you. For what you said to Robert, and for what you said on the balcony. You didn't have to do either. Yeah, I did. They rode the rest of the way in comfortable silence. When they got back to the penthouse, Eleanor paused in the entryway. I'm flying back to Frankfurt with you tomorrow, she said suddenly, to meet Emma. Lucas blinked. What? If we're doing this properly, I should meet your sister. She's part of your life, which means she needs to be part of mine. At least publicly. Eleanor's voice was matter-of-fact, but there was something underneath it. Nervousness, maybe. Unless you don't want me to. No, she actually asked to meet you a few weeks ago. I just didn't think you'd want to. I want to. Eleanor looked away. I need to understand what we're fighting for. And I need her to know that this, whatever this is, it's not just about business anymore. Lucas didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Okay, we leave at 10. I'll be ready. She disappeared into her wing, leaving Lucas alone in the living room. He stood there for a while, still in his tuxedo, still wearing the mask of someone he wasn't. Or maybe someone he was becoming. He couldn't tell anymore. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. How was the fancy party? Did you embarrass yourself? Lucas smiled and typed back. Totally embarrassed myself, but I think I got away with it. Good. Come back soon. Germany is boring without you. Tomorrow. And I'm bringing someone with me. Who? You'll see. Get some rest, Em. Lucas, tell me. He put the phone down, still smiling. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. Emma meeting Eleanor, two of the most important people in his life in the same room. One dying, one fighting, both stubborn as hell. Lucas changed out of the tuxedo, carefully hanging it up the way the stylist had shown him. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened tonight. The party, the dancing, Marcus Webb's threats, the conversation on the balcony. All in. That's what they'd agreed to. Lucas just hoped they were both ready for what that meant. The flight to Frankfurt left at 10, just like Eleanor said. Lucas showed up at the private terminal at 9:30 with his worn duffel bag, half expecting her to cancel at the last minute. But she was already there, dressed in dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost what he used to make in a month. Her hair was down, no makeup, looking more human than he'd ever seen her. She had a leather overnight bag at her feet and a tablet in her hands, reading something that made her frown. "Morning," Lucas said. She glanced up. "You're early." "Habit. Emma says I'm pathologically punctual." Good trait. Eleanor saved whatever she'd been reading and stood. "Are you ready for this?" "Are you? Emma's going to interrogate you. She's been texting me nonstop since I told her you were coming." "What did she say?" Lucas pulled out his phone and scrolled to Emma's most recent message. Quote, "If your Ice Queen wife is mean to me, I'm going to roast her and you can't stop me." End quote. Eleanor's lips twitched. "Ice Queen?" Her words, not mine. "I've been called worse." She picked up her bag. "Let's go meet your sister." The flight was quieter than last time. Eleanor spent the first hour working, firing off emails and taking calls in rapid German that Lucas didn't understand. He tried to sleep but couldn't, too nervous about what was going to happen when they landed. Finally, Eleanor put her tablet away and turned to him. "Tell me about her," she said. "Emma?" "Yes." "Beyond the medical details. Who is she?" Lucas thought about how to answer that. "She's stubborn, smart as hell, reads everything, asks questions that don't have answers. Used to want to be a journalist before the cancer came back. Now she just wants to make it to 17. What is she like?" "Music, old stuff, classic rock mostly, Led Zeppelin, The Who, our dad's taste. She memorized every lyric to Stairway to Heaven when she was 9. Lucas smiled, remembering. "She's funny too, dark sense of humor, makes jokes about dying that make the nurses uncomfortable. Sounds like someone worth fighting for." "She is. She's everything." Lucas looked out the window at the clouds below. "Our parents died when she was 8. Car accident, drunk driver ran a red light. After that, it was just us. I became her legal guardian, dropped out of college to work full-time. She blames herself for that. For me, giving up my life." "Did you? Give up your life?" "No. I got a different one. Not the one I planned, but..." He shrugged. "She needed me. That was more important than whatever future I thought I wanted." Eleanor was quiet for a moment. Then, "She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her." They landed in Frankfurt just after 3 local time. Lucas had texted the hospital that they were coming, and Dr. Weber met them in the lobby. "Mr. Reed, good to see you again. And you must be Mrs. Reed." He shook Eleanor's hand warmly. "Emma has been asking about you all morning." "How is she?" Lucas asked. "Stable. The second round of treatment started yesterday. She's tired but managing well." Dr. Weber led them toward the elevators. "I should warn you, she's in some pain. The medication helps, but it's not perfect." Lucas's chest tightened. "Can we see her?" "Of course." Emma's room was on the 4th floor at the end of a quiet hallway. Through the small window in the door, Lucas could see her sitting up in bed, earbuds in, eyes closed. She looked smaller than she had 2 days ago, thinner. The IV in her arm was connected to 3 different bags. He knocked softly before entering. Emma's eyes opened, and when she saw him, her whole face lit up. "Luke!" She pulled out the earbuds. "You're back. I thought you'd bail on me for your fancy Manhattan life." "Never." He crossed to the bed and hugged her carefully, mindful of the IV lines. "How are you feeling?" "Like death warmed over, but I'm still here, so that's something." Emma's eyes shifted past him to Eleanor, standing in the doorway. "Holy crap, you're really pretty." Eleanor blinked, clearly not expecting that. "Thank you." "Emma, this is Eleanor." "Eleanor, Emma." Emma studied Eleanor with the kind of intensity that made Lucas nervous. She was doing that thing where she tried to figure someone out in the first 30 seconds, reading body language and tone and all the little details people thought they were hiding. "So," Emma said finally, "you're the woman who married my brother after knowing him for like 5 minutes." "Emma, it's fine." Eleanor moved into the room, stopping a few feet from the bed. Yes, that's accurate. Why? Emma, you can't just... No, it's okay. Eleanor met Emma's eyes steadily. You want to know why I married Lucas? That's fair. The simple answer is that I needed a husband for business reasons, and he needed money for your treatment. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. Lucas winced. That was not how he would have phrased it, but Emma just nodded. At least you're honest about it. Most people would have lied and said it was love at first sight or some garbage like that. I don't lie well. Never have. Me neither. Luke says it's because we're terrible people. I said you have no filter, Lucas corrected. That's different. Emma ignored him, still focused on Eleanor. So it's fake. The marriage. Legally, it's real. Emotionally, Eleanor paused, choosing her words carefully. It's complicated. That's a very adult answer. I hate adult answers. Emma shifted in bed, wincing slightly. Here's what I want to know. Are you going to hurt my brother? Emma, because he's doing this for me. He married a stranger, moved into a penthouse, is pretending to be someone he's not. Also, I don't die. That's a lot. And if you're just using him, if you don't actually care about what this costs him, then I have a problem with you, billionaire or not. The room went very quiet. Lucas started to say something, but Eleanor held up a hand. You're right, she said quietly. Lucas gave up a year of his life for you. That is a lot. More than most people would do. She moved closer to the bed, her voice steady but softer than Lucas had ever heard it. I can't promise I won't hurt him. I can't promise this arrangement won't have consequences neither of us anticipated, but I can promise that I will hold up my end of the deal. Your treatment, your recovery, your future, those are guaranteed, regardless of what happens between Lucas and me. You have my word. Emma watched her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. Okay. You can stay. I appreciate the permission. Don't get cocky. I'm still evaluating you. Emma glanced at Lucas. She's less ice queen than I expected. More like, I don't know, ice princess, maybe. That's not really better, Em. It's a little better. Emma yawned, suddenly looking exhausted. Sorry, the meds make me tired. We should let you rest, Eleanor said. But I'd like to visit again tomorrow if that's all right. Emma's eyes widened slightly. You're staying? For a few days. I have work I can do remotely, and Eleanor glanced at Lucas. I think it's important that I understand what your brother is fighting for. Wow. Okay. Yeah, you can come back. Emma settled deeper into her pillows. Luke, don't let her leave without showing her the good coffee place. The hospital stuff tastes like dirt. I'll take care of it. They left Emma to sleep and walked back through the hospital in silence. Outside, the late afternoon sun was warm, and Lucas led Eleanor down the block to a small cafe that served the best espresso in the neighborhood. They sat at an outdoor table, and for a while neither of them spoke. Finally, Eleanor said, "She's remarkable." Yeah, she is. She reminds me of myself at that age, stubborn, suspicious of everyone, determined not to show weakness. Lucas looked at her, surprised. You were like that at 16? I was worse. My father died when I was 15, left me a failing tech company and a mountain of debt. Everyone expected me to sell, to walk away. But I didn't. I learned the business, fired half the board, restructured everything. By the time I was 23, the company was profitable. By 30, it was worth $1 billion. Jesus, how? I worked. Every day, all day. No friends, no relationships, no life outside the office. Just work. Eleanor stirred her coffee absently. People called me cold, ruthless, a robot in heels. And maybe they were right. Maybe that's what I had to become to survive. That's not all you are, isn't it? She looked at him, and for once there was no mask, just raw honesty. I'm 37 years old, Lucas. I have no family, no real friends, no one who knows me beyond the corporate image. I've spent my entire adult life building something that could disappear the moment the board decides I'm not worth keeping. And the only person who agreed to marry me was someone I had to pay. But that's not... Lucas stopped. Because she was right. He had married her for money. That was the whole arrangement. But sitting here now, watching her try to hide how much that hurt, he realized something. Eleanor Voss wasn't cold. She was lonely, and she'd been lonely for so long she'd forgotten there was any other way to be. Emma likes you, he said quietly. That's rare. She usually hates everyone on principle. She loves you. That's obvious. The feeling's mutual. Lucas took a sip of his coffee. Thank you for coming here. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. If Marcus Webb is investigating us, he'll look at everything. How we interact, whether we know each other's families, if we actually spend time together, coming here, meeting Emma. It adds authenticity. Is that the only reason? Eleanor was quiet for a moment, then, no, I wanted to meet her. I wanted to understand why you agreed to this, and I wanted her to know that I'm not. She stopped, searching for words. I'm not the villain in this story. I know how it looks. Rich woman buying a husband. But it's more complicated than that. I know. Do you? Lucas thought about the past few weeks. The penthouse, the gala. The way Eleanor had checked on Emma without being asked. The way she'd stood on that balcony looking devastated at the thought of losing everything she'd built. The way she was sitting here now, thousands of miles from her office, because she thought it mattered. Yeah, he said, I do. They finished their coffee and walked back to the hotel Eleanor had booked, a place far nicer than the one Lucas had been staying in, 2 rooms, adjoining door between them. Eleanor disappeared into hers immediately to take a call, leaving Lucas alone with his thoughts. His phone buzzed, a text from Emma. Your wife is weird, but I don't hate her. That's basically a gold star from me. Lucas smiled and typed back, noted. Get some rest. Are you staying in Germany for a while? A few days? Eleanor has to get back for work. But you're coming back after she leaves, right? You promised. Lucas hesitated. He had promised. But with Marcus Webb investigating, with the board watching every move, maybe it was smarter to stay in New York, to be visible, public, convincing. I'll figure it out, he typed. Either way, I'm not abandoning you. I know. Love you. Love you too, Em. He set the phone down and stared at the ceiling of his hotel room. This was supposed to be simple. 1 year, clear terms. Everyone gets what they need. But nothing about this was simple anymore. Emma was thousands of miles away fighting for her life. Eleanor was being hunted by a private investigator who wanted to destroy her. And Lucas was caught in the middle, pretending to be someone he wasn't for reasons that felt less clear every day. A knock on the adjoining door pulled him from his thoughts. He opened it to find Eleanor standing there, changed into comfortable clothes, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. I'm ordering room service, she said. Do you want anything? Sure, whatever's fine. Helpful. But she was almost smiling. Come on, you can't just eat whatever. Pick something. They ended up in her room with the menu spread between them on the couch. Eleanor ordered in German, which was impressive, and also made Lucas feel inadequate. When the food arrived, schnitzel, roasted vegetables, some kind of pasta Lucas didn't recognize, they ate in comfortable silence. Can I ask you something? Lucas said eventually. Depends on the question. Why did you really come here? And don't say authenticity or the investigation. What's the real reason? Eleanor set down her fork. She was quiet for a long time, and Lucas was starting to think she wouldn't answer. Then, because I wanted to see what it looks like. Someone fighting for another person the way you fight for Emma. I've never had that. Never been that person for anyone. Never had anyone be that person for me. She looked at him directly. And I wanted to understand what I'm protecting. You married me to save her. That means she's part of this equation. I needed to meet her to see why she's worth it. And she is. Worth it. Worth fighting for. Eleanor's voice was soft. You're lucky, Lucas, to have someone who matters that much. A lot of people never do. You could. Have someone, I mean. Could I? She smiled, but it was sad. I'm not exactly easy to love. I work too much. I'm too direct. I don't know how to let people in. The last relationship I had ended because he said being with me was like dating a corporation. He wasn't wrong. That guy was an idiot. Maybe. Or maybe he was honest. Eleanor stood, gathering the empty plates. We should get some sleep. Tomorrow I want to talk to Dr. Weber about Emma's prognosis. and I thought we could spend the afternoon with her if she's feeling up to it. She'd like that. Eleanor paused at the door to the adjoining room. Lucas, what you said at the gala about me fighting harder than anyone you've met, did you mean it? Yeah, I did. Why? Because it's true. You built something from nothing. You survived in a world designed to destroy you, and you're still standing. That takes more strength than most people have. Eleanor's eyes shimmered just for a second. Then she blinked, and the moment passed. Good night, Lucas. Night, Eleanor. She closed the door between them, and Lucas lay in bed thinking about everything she'd said, about loneliness and worth and what it meant to matter to someone. He'd never thought about Eleanor as lonely before. She'd always seemed too powerful, too self-contained, but now he saw it. The way she held herself apart, the way she measured every word, the way she looked at Emma like she was witnessing something foreign and precious. The next morning, they met Dr. Weber in his office. He showed them Emma's latest scans, explained the treatment protocol in detail, walked them through best case and worst case scenarios. The best case, Emma responds to treatment, goes into remission, returns home in 3 months. Worst case, the treatment fails, the cancer spreads, they make her comfortable. What are her actual chances? Eleanor asked. She'd been quiet through most of the meeting, but now her voice was steady, demanding real answers. Dr. Weber hesitated. Statistically, 40% survival rate over 5 years, but Emma is strong, young, otherwise healthy. I believe her chances are better than average. How much better? 55, maybe 60%. Eleanor absorbed this. And if the treatment works, what's her quality of life? Normal. She'll need regular monitoring, but most patients return to full function within a year. Most. Some experience long-term effects, fatigue, weakened immune systems, increased cancer risk later in life. But compared to the alternative, he spread his hands. Compared to dying, it's acceptable, Eleanor finished. I understand. They spent the afternoon with Emma. She was more alert today, the pain medication adjusted to a better balance. Eleanor sat in the chair beside the bed while Lucas perched on the windowsill, and they talked about nothing important. Music, movies, what food Emma missed most from home. Eleanor was surprisingly good at it. The small talk, the gentle questions, the way she listened like Emma's opinions actually mattered. At one point, Emma asked Eleanor about running a company. What's it like? Being in charge of everything? Terrifying, Eleanor said honestly. Every decision could be the one that ruins everything. Every hire could be the wrong person. Every risk could backfire. You don't sleep well. You don't sleep at all sometimes. So why do it? Because when it works, when you build something real that matters, that employs thousands of people and changes how the world functions, there's nothing else like it. It's worth the fear. Emma nodded slowly. That's how I feel about living. Every day could be the one where my body gives up. Every scan could show the cancer spreading. But when I have a good day, when I can laugh or listen to music or just be alive, it's worth the fear. Eleanor's expression shifted. Something cracked in that perfect composure. Yes, exactly that. They sat in silence for a moment, some understanding passing between them that Lucas couldn't quite grasp. Then Emma yawned and the moment broke. Sorry, I'm wiped. Well, we should let you rest. Eleanor stood. Can we come back tomorrow? Definitely. Bring better snacks, though. Hospital food is tragic. Noted. Outside Emma's room, Lucas turned to Eleanor. You were good with her. She's easy to talk to, honest. I like that. She likes you too. That's a miracle, honestly. They walked through the hospital and out into the summer evening. The city was beautiful at this hour, golden light making everything look softer. Eleanor stopped on the sidewalk, turning to face him. Lucas, I need to ask you something. Okay? If the investigation goes badly, if Marcus Webb finds proof this marriage is fake, the board will remove me. I'll lose the company. But the contract we signed guarantees Emma's treatment continues regardless. You and she would be fine. Eleanor's voice was steady, but her eyes were uncertain. If it comes to that, if you have to choose between protecting me and protecting yourself, I need you to choose yourself. Don't go down with my ship. Eleanor, I'm serious. You don't owe me anything beyond what we agreed to. If Webb comes after you, if he offers you a deal to testify against me, take it. Save yourself. Lucas stared at her. You think I'd do that? Throw you under the bus to save myself? I think you're smart enough to know when a fight is lost. And I think you don't know me as well as you think you do. Lucas stepped closer. I told you last night, all in. That wasn't conditional. That wasn't all in unless things get hard. I meant it. We're in this together. Why? You barely know me. Maybe. But I know you came to Germany to meet my sister. I know you sat with her for 3 hours today, making her laugh when she's terrified. I know you work yourself to death because you're afraid of being seen as weak. And I know you deserve better than everyone around you trying to destroy what you've built. He met her eyes. So no. I'm not taking any deal. I'm not testifying against you. We face whatever comes next together, or not at all. Eleanor looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. Not her corporate smile, not her polite smile. A real one, small and genuine and surprised. Okay, she said quietly. Together. They walked back to the hotel as the sun set over Frankfurt, and something between them had shifted again. Not much. Just enough to matter. The next 3 days passed in a strange sort of rhythm. Mornings with Emma, afternoons working, Eleanor on her laptop taking calls, Lucas researching treatment options and managing Emma's care coordination. Evenings they spent together, usually over dinner, talking about everything and nothing. Eleanor told him about growing up in Boston, about her father's company failing, about clawing her way to the top through pure stubbornness. Lucas told her about raising Emma, about dropping out of college, about all the jobs he'd worked just to keep them afloat. They didn't talk about the investigation, didn't talk about what would happen when they got back to New York. Just existed in this bubble where they could be almost normal. On the fourth night, Eleanor's phone rang at 11 p.m. She answered, listened for 30 seconds, and went pale. When? She asked. Then, I'll be on the next flight. She hung up and looked at Lucas. We need to go home. Now. What happened? Robert called an emergency board meeting. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. He says he has evidence that our marriage is fraudulent. He's moving to have me removed as CEO. Lucas's stomach dropped. Evidence? What evidence? I don't know, but Marcus Webb has been investigating for 2 weeks. He must have found something. Eleanor was already moving, pulling out her laptop, booking flights. We can be in New York by noon if we leave in an hour. What about Emma? What about her? I can't just leave. Lucas. Eleanor stopped, turning to face him. Emma is safe here. The treatment is working. Dr. Weber is excellent, and she has a full medical team. But if we don't stop this, if Robert succeeds, everything falls apart. Not just for me, for you, for Emma's future treatment, for all of it. She was right. Lucas knew she was right. But the thought of leaving Emma alone in a foreign country while he flew back to fight a battle that might already be lost made him feel sick. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Go, I heard the nurses talking. Your wife needs you. I'll be fine. How did you? Hospital walls are thin and nurses gossip. Go. Fix this. Then come back and tell me how you saved the day. Lucas showed Eleanor the text. She read it and something in her expression softened. Your sister is bossy. Yeah, I wonder where she gets it. They packed in 15 minutes and were in a car to the airport 20 minutes after that. The flight back to New York was tense and quiet. Eleanor worked the entire time, preparing for the meeting, coordinating with lawyers, reviewing every detail of their arrangement for weaknesses. Lucas sat beside her feeling useless, trying to think of something, anything, that could help. As they descended into JFK, Eleanor finally closed her laptop and turned to him. No matter what happens today, she said quietly, thank you for trying, for standing with me. It means more than you know. We're not done fighting yet. Maybe not. But just in case, thank you. The car was waiting when they landed. They drove straight to Voss Industries, arriving at 1:30 p.m. The building felt different today, hostile, like everyone knew what was coming. Diana met them in the lobby, her face grim. They're waiting in the executive conference room, all 12 board members. Robert has lawyers with him. Of course he does. Eleanor's voice was ice again. All business, no emotion. The armor was back. Lucas, you should wait in my office. No, I'm coming with you. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. We're in this together, remember? All in. He took her hand, threading their fingers together. Let's go show them we're not going down without a fight. Eleanor looked at their joined hands, then at him. Then she nodded. Together, she said. They walked into the conference room side by side, and 12 pairs of eyes turned to watch them. Robert sat at the head of the table, Marcus Webb beside him, looking smug. This was it. The moment everything either held together or fell completely apart. Lucas squeezed Eleanor's hand once. She squeezed back. Then they stepped forward to face whatever came next. Robert didn't stand when they entered. He just smiled, the kind of smile that said he'd already won and was enjoying watching them realize it. Eleanor, Mr. Reed, thank you for joining us on such short notice. He gestured to 2 empty chairs across from him. Please, sit. Eleanor remained standing. Let's skip the pleasantries, Robert. You called this meeting. State your business. Very well. Robert opened a folder in front of him. Over the past 2 weeks, I've had concerns about the legitimacy of your marriage. So I hired Mr. Webb here to investigate. He nodded toward Marcus, who looked exactly as smug as Lucas remembered. What he found is quite troubling. I'm sure it is, Eleanor said coolly, considering you paid him to find something. The truth isn't a commodity, Ms. Voss. It simply is. Marcus stood, pulling out his own folder. Mr. Reed, 3 weeks before your marriage, you were 2 months behind on rent. Your bank account had a balance of $73. You were researching payday loan services and had visited 3 different loan sharks in Queens. Then, 3 days after meeting Ms. Voss, you were married. Your sister's medical expenses, all $380,000 of them, were suddenly covered. You moved into a penthouse worth $8 million. All of your financial problems disappeared overnight. Lucas's jaw tightened. So what? People's circumstances change. Not like this. Not this fast. Unless there's a transaction involved. Marcus pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table. This is you, Mr. Reed, at McHale's Bar in Hell's Kitchen, the night you met Miss Voss. Security camera footage shows you alone, drinking heavily, visibly distressed. Then Ms. Voss arrives at 11:47 p.m. She sits beside you. You talk for approximately 40 minutes. Then you leave together. We met at a bar, Eleanor said. That's not a crime. No, but the timing is interesting. That same night, Ms. Voss had just learned that the board was considering the merger, the one that would dilute her controlling stake. She needed something to change the optics. And conveniently, she found a desperate man with a dying sister. Marcus's voice was clinical, factual. 3 days later, you're married. No engagement, no courtship, no witnesses except strangers. You filed the certificate at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. Most people getting married for love don't do it like filing taxes. Catherine Whitmore shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Eleanor, is this true? The timeline is accurate, Eleanor said carefully, but the interpretation is not. Then explain it, Robert said. Explain how this isn't exactly what it looks like, a business arrangement disguised as a marriage. Eleanor opened her mouth, but Lucas spoke first. You want the truth? Fine. Here it is. He looked around the table, meeting each board member's eyes. 3 weeks ago, my sister was dying. I tried everything. Loans, fundraising, selling everything I owned. Nothing was enough. I was out of options. So yeah, I went to a bar and got drunk because I didn't know what else to do. Lucas? Eleanor's voice was warning. No, they want the truth. They get it. He turned back to the board. Eleanor did approach me that night. She did offer me a deal. Marriage for a year in exchange for funding Emma's treatment. And I said yes because what choice did I have? Let my 16-year-old sister die, or agree to help someone who needed a husband for business reasons? That's not even a choice. Marcus smiled triumphantly. So you admit it. This marriage is a fraud. I admit it started as a transaction, Lucas said. But that's not what it is anymore. The room went silent. Robert leaned forward. Explain. Lucas glanced at Eleanor. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Surprise, maybe, or fear. He just admitted the truth they'd been trying to hide. But there was no going back now. When I married Eleanor, I thought I knew what I was getting into. A year of pretending, playing a role then walking away. Simple, clean. But it's not simple. Nothing about this has been simple. Lucas's voice was steady. I've watched her work 18-hour days because she's terrified of being seen as weak. I've seen her visit my sister in Germany when she didn't have to, sit with her for hours, make her laugh. I've seen who she is when the armor comes off, someone lonely and brilliant and so determined to prove she deserves what she's built that she's forgotten she already has. That's very touching, Robert said dryly, but it doesn't change the facts. This marriage began as fraud. Maybe it did, but fraud is about intent, right? About deception for gain. Lucas looked at Eleanor again. I'm not gaining anything from this except the chance to save my sister, and Eleanor's not deceiving anyone about who she is. She's exactly what you see, a CEO who's better at running a company than anyone in this room. The marriage might have started as strategy, but that doesn't make her less qualified to lead. It makes her a liar, Marcus said. She stood in front of this board and presented her marriage as genuine. That's fraud. That's grounds for removal. Is it? Lucas turned to face him directly. Because from where I'm standing, the only fraud here is you. You were hired to dig up dirt, so you twisted every fact to fit the story Robert wanted. Yeah, we met in a bar. Yeah, the timing was convenient. But you left out the part where Eleanor spent 3 days in Germany last week because she wanted to understand what she was fighting for. You left out the part where she learned my sister's favorite music and brought her the right kind of coffee. You left out every single thing that doesn't fit your narrative. Those are just details. No, those are the truth. And the truth is that this marriage might not look like what you expected, but it's real in the ways that matter. Lucas's hands were shaking, but his voice stayed steady. You want to remove Eleanor because she's inconvenient, because she's a woman who won't play by your rules, because she's better at this job than Robert ever was. The marriage is just an excuse. Robert's face darkened. That's absurd. Is it? Because I've read the merger proposal. Eleanor's against it because it's bad for the company long term, but you're for it because you've got stock options that pay out if it goes through. This isn't about protecting Voss Industries. It's about your bank account. How dare you, but Robert. Catherine's voice cut through the rising argument. Is that true? Do you have financial interest in the merger? That's irrelevant to. It's entirely relevant. If you're using this marriage investigation to force Eleanor out so the merger proceeds, that's a conflict of interest. Catherine looked around the table. I think we need to examine Robert's motivations here before we make any decisions about Eleanor's position. Several board members nodded. Robert's face went red. This is ridiculous. We're here to discuss Eleanor's fraud, not my investments. Actually, Eleanor said quietly, we're here because you called an emergency meeting to remove me as CEO. But Lucas is right. This was never about the marriage. It was about you wanting control of a company you haven't earned. I've been on this board for 15 years, and in those 15 years, you've opposed every major innovation I've implemented. Cloud infrastructure, AI integration, the European expansion, you voted against all of it. If you'd had your way, this company would still be selling mid-tier software to small businesses instead of being a global leader. Eleanor's voice was cold and precise. You don't want to lead Voss Industries, Robert. You want to sell it piece by piece until there's nothing left but your profit margin. That's defamatory. It's documented. Every vote, every meeting, every time you prioritize short-term gains over long-term growth. I have 15 years of records proving that your judgment is consistently wrong. Eleanor pulled out her own folder, sliding it across the table. I came prepared too. Want to discuss your track record? Robert stared at the folder, then at Eleanor. For the first time since they'd entered the room, he looked uncertain. Marcus cleared his throat. The marriage is still fraudulent, regardless of Mr. Hawthorne's motivations. Is it? Catherine picked up the folder Eleanor had provided, scanning the contents. Because according to this marriage certificate, it's legally valid. And according to New York state law, the only grounds for annulment are force, fraud, in the inducement of marriage, or lack of capacity. Mr. Reed clearly had capacity. There was no force. And fraud in the inducement requires that one party deceive the other about something fundamental, which isn't the case here since both parties openly acknowledge the arrangement. They admit it's fake. They admit it began as a mutual agreement. That's not the same as fraud. Catherine set down the folder. I'm not a lawyer, but I suspect if this went to court, it would be very difficult to prove illegality. Unusual, yes. Unconventional, absolutely. But illegal, I doubt it. Another board member spoke up. Thomas Chen, who ran the company's Asian operations. I agree with Catherine. I don't love that Eleanor wasn't forthcoming about the circumstances of her marriage, but that's a personal matter. Her professional performance is exemplary. Revenue is up 32% since last year. Employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. The European expansion is exceeding projections. Why would we remove a CEO who's succeeding in every measurable way? Because integrity matters, Robert said, but his voice lacked conviction now. Integrity. Eleanor laughed, sharp and bitter. You want to talk about integrity? You hired a private investigator to stalk my husband. You called an emergency meeting to humiliate me in front of the entire board. You've spent 2 weeks trying to destroy my reputation because I won't rubber stamp a merger that benefits you personally. And you're lecturing me about integrity? Robert stood abruptly. I've heard enough. We're voting. All in favor of removing Eleanor Voss as CEO based on fraudulent marriage and conflict of interest. His hand went up. Marcus, who wasn't even a board member, started to raise his hand too, then realized he had no vote and lowered it, looking embarrassed. No one else moved. Robert looked around the table in disbelief. You can't be serious. She admitted it. The marriage is fake. The marriage is unconventional, Catherine corrected. But Mr. Reed is right. What they do in their personal lives isn't our business unless it affects company performance. And it hasn't. If anything, Eleanor's been more focused since the wedding. This is insane. No, Robert. What's insane is trying to oust the best CEO this company has ever had because you don't like that she won't do what you want. Catherine stood. I move that we table this discussion indefinitely and return to actual business matters. Seconded, Thomas said immediately. All in favor? 11 hands went up. Only Robert stayed down. Motion carries. Catherine looked at Robert. I think you should consider resigning from the board, Robert. This has been a massive waste of everyone's time and resources, and frankly, your judgment is compromised. Robert's face was purple now. He grabbed his folder and Marcus's arm. This isn't over, Eleanor. Yes, Eleanor said quietly. It is. Robert stormed out, Marcus following. The door slammed behind them. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Catherine smiled. Well, that was dramatic. A few board members laughed, tension breaking. Eleanor remained standing, her posture perfect, but Lucas could see her hands shaking. Thank you, she said to the board. I know this situation is unusual. I should have been more transparent about my personal circumstances. But I promise you, my commitment to this company is unwavering. We know, Thomas said. You've proven that every day for 15 years. Just maybe next time you need a husband. Give us a heads up. More laughter. Eleanor almost smiled. Noted. The board members started filing out, several stopping to shake Lucas's hand or murmur congratulations to Eleanor. Catherine was the last to leave. She paused at the door. For what it's worth, Eleanor, I hope it works out. The marriage, I mean. You deserve to be happy, not just successful. Then she was gone, and Lucas and Eleanor were alone in the conference room. Eleanor sat down heavily, all the tension draining out of her at once. I can't believe that worked. I can't believe I just told your entire board the truth. That was incredibly stupid. I know, but it was also the only option. Lucas sat beside her. Marcus was going to prove it anyway. At least this way we controlled the narrative. We could have both been destroyed. But we weren't. Eleanor looked at him, really looked at him. Why did you do that? You could have stayed quiet. Let me handle it. But you stood up and defended me knowing it could cost you everything. Because you needed someone to. Lucas shrugged. And because what I said was true. This started as a transaction, but it's not anymore. At least not for me. What is it then? Lucas thought about the past month. The gala where he'd told Robert that Eleanor's armor was protection, not coldness. The coffee shop in Frankfurt where she'd admitted she was lonely. The hospital where she'd sat with Emma talking about fear and worth. All the small moments where the ice had cracked and he'd seen the person underneath. I don't know. he said honestly. But it's something real. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took his hand, threading their fingers together like she had when they walked into this room. I need to tell you something, she said quietly. After the gala, after Marcus approached you, I had my lawyers draw up dissolution papers. I was going to end the marriage, release you from the contract, let you walk away before this destroyed you. Lucas's chest tightened. Why didn't you? Because you said we were all in, and then you flew to Germany with me, and you stood in that hospital room while my sister told me I was weird, and you didn't laugh or defend me, you just let it happen. You let me be part of your life. Eleanor's voice cracked slightly. No one's ever done that before. Let me in. I didn't know how to ask you to stay, so I just didn't give you the papers. Eleanor, I'm not good at this. At people, at feelings, at any of it. I know how to run a company. I know how to make decisions and execute strategy and win. But I don't know how to... She stopped, searching for words. I don't know how to tell you that somewhere in the past month this stopped being fake for me too. Lucas stared at her. Her perfect composure was completely gone now. She just looked scared and honest and human. Say something, she whispered. He leaned forward and kissed her. It wasn't planned, wasn't calculated. Just a sudden, desperate need to show her what he couldn't figure out how to say. Eleanor made a small, surprised sound, then kissed him back. Her hand came up to his face, gentle and tentative, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to touch him. When they pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. Okay, Eleanor said shakily. That was... okay. Yeah. We should probably talk about what this means. Probably. But neither of them moved. They just sat there, foreheads pressed together, hands still linked. Outside the conference room, the office was returning to normal. People going about their business, unaware that two people had just admitted something neither of them fully understood yet. Lucas's phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Did you save the day? Are you still married? Is your wife still a CEO? I need updates. He showed Eleanor the text. She laughed, a real laugh that made her eyes crinkle. Your sister has terrible timing. She's 16. Terrible timing is her specialty. What? Lucas typed back. Still married, still CEO. Everything's fine. Call you tonight. Fine? Fine is not a story. Lucas, I need details. Later, I promise. He put the phone away and looked at Eleanor. So, what now? Now we go back to work. I have about 600 emails and 3 meetings I missed while we were in Germany. Eleanor stood, straightening her clothes, pulling herself back together. The armor was returning piece by piece. And you need to call Emma properly. She deserves more than text updates. What about us? Are we just going back to how things were? Eleanor paused at the door. I don't think we can. Too much has changed. She looked back at him. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe we figure out what this is as we go. No more separate bedrooms? That seems impractical now. Her lips quirked. But I snore. Fair warning. I'll survive. You. They walked out of the conference room together, and Lucas realized people were watching them differently now. Not with suspicion or curiosity, just with acceptance. The CEO and her husband. Nothing scandalous, nothing wrong, just two people who'd figured out how to be together despite starting from impossible odds. Diana was waiting outside Eleanor's office. I've rescheduled your afternoon meetings. You have an hour before the next one. And Mr. Reed, there's someone here to see you. Lucas frowned. Who? She's waiting in the lobby. Said her name is Emma Reed. Lucas's heart stopped. What? He ran to the elevator, jabbed the button for the lobby, rode down in an agony of confusion and fear. What was Emma doing here? She was supposed to be in Germany. She wasn't supposed to travel. Dr. Weber said, the elevator doors opened, and there she was. Sitting in a wheelchair, a nurse beside her, grinning like she'd just pulled off the best prank in history. Surprise, she said. Lucas crossed the lobby in 3 seconds flat. What are you doing here? How are you here? You're supposed to be in treatment. Relax, Dr. Weber cleared me for travel. I'm between treatment rounds, and he said a few days at home would be good for morale. Emma's smile was mischievous. I figured you could use some moral support. and I wanted to meet your fancy board members who tried to fire your wife. You can't just... How did you even get here? Diana arranged everything. Private medical flight, ambulance to the hospital, then here. Your wife's assistant is scary efficient. Lucas turned to see Diana standing by the elevator, looking satisfied with herself. Ms. Voss thought Emma might want to be here for the aftermath. I coordinated with Dr. Weber's team this morning. Eleanor knew. She suggested it. Lucas looked at Emma, then at Diana, then back at Emma. You're all insane, but you love us anyway. Emma grabbed his hand. So, did you save the day? Tell me everything. Lucas knelt beside the wheelchair so he was at her eye level. I might have told your entire board that our marriage started as fake. Emma's eyes went wide. You what? Then I told them it wasn't fake anymore. Oh my, Lucas, did it work? Somehow, yeah. Robert's probably getting forced out. Eleanor's still CEO. We're still married. And are you still pretending? Lucas thought about the kiss, about Eleanor's hand in his, about the way she'd said this stopped being fake for me too. No, he said quietly. I don't think we are. Emma studied his face, then smiled. Good. She's weird and scary, but she's also kind of perfect for you. Plus, she saved my life. That buys her a lot of points. Only you would grade my wife like a test. Someone has to. Emma yawned suddenly, looking exhausted. Sorry. The flight was long. We need to get you to a hotel, or a hospital, or the penthouse, Eleanor said from behind them. Lucas hadn't heard her approach. Emma can stay with us. We have plenty of room, and it's closer than a hotel. Emma looked up at her. Really? Really? Your brother will feel better if you're close, and frankly, so will I. Eleanor crouched down to Emma's level. But you need to rest. Dr. Weber was very clear about your limitations. Okay, Ice Queen. I thought I was upgraded to Ice Princess. You're on probation. Could go either way. But Emma was smiling. They got Emma settled in one of the guest rooms, a process that involved the nurse, approximately 40 pillows, and Emma giving detailed instructions about which music she wanted access to. By the time everything was arranged, it was almost 6 p.m. Eleanor had disappeared into her office for a conference call, and Lucas sat with Emma until she fell asleep. He found Eleanor still working in her study, laptop open, phone on speaker while she discussed supply chain issues with someone in Singapore. She held up one finger. Wait, and finished the call. Sorry, crisis in the Jakarta facility. Is everything always a crisis with you? Usually, yes. She closed the laptop. How's Emma? Asleep, happy, probably going to milk this visit for all it's worth. Good. She deserves to. Eleanor stood, stretching. I'm done for the day. Want dinner? You're actually done. It's only 6. It's been a long day. I'm allowing myself to stop working early. She moved toward him, hesitant. Besides, I have better things to do. Like what? Like figuring out what we are now. We never finished that conversation. They ended up on the couch with takeout from someplace that delivered gourmet Italian for $30 a plate. Eleanor ate with her legs tucked under her, hair down, looking more relaxed than Lucas had ever seen her. So, she said, ground rules. We need ground rules. We need something. We can't just wing this. Eleanor set down her fork. I'm not good at relationships. I work too much. I'm not romantic. I don't know how to do the normal couple things people expect. Neither do I. I've been too busy raising Emma to date anyone seriously. So we're both terrible at this. Looks like it. Then I guess we figure it out together. Eleanor reached for his hand. No more separate bedrooms. We try to actually be married instead of just looking married. We tell each other the truth, even when it's hard. And we remember that we're on the same team. I can do that. Lucas squeezed her hand. But I have one rule too. What? No more pushing me away when things get hard. We deal with problems together. No secret dissolution papers. No protecting me from consequences. None of that. If we're doing this, we're actually doing it. Eleanor looked at their joined hands for a long moment. That's going to be hard for me. I'm used to handling everything alone. I know, but you don't have to anymore. She nodded slowly. Okay. Together. Together. They finished dinner and talked until almost midnight. About work, about Emma's treatment schedule, about what the next few months would look like. It was normal and strange and comfortable all at once, like they were finally becoming the people they'd been pretending to be. When Lucas finally stood to go to bed, Eleanor stood too. "My room or yours?" she asked. "Yours is bigger." Fair point. They walked down the hallway to Eleanor's wing, and Lucas realized this was actually happening. They were sharing a bedroom, sharing a life, choosing each other not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Eleanor changed in the bathroom while Lucas stood awkwardly by the bed, suddenly nervous. When she came out in pajamas, actual pajamas, not some silk thing he'd expected, she looked just as nervous. "This is weird," she said. "Yeah. Good weird or bad weird?" "Don't know yet." They got into bed on opposite sides, careful not to touch, both staring at the ceiling. The silence stretched until Lucas couldn't stand it anymore. "Do you actually snore?" "I have no idea. No one's ever told me." "So you lied." I panicked. Eleanor turned on her side to face him. "I don't know how to do this, Lucas. The vulnerable thing, the letting someone in thing, I'm going to be bad at it." "Then be bad at it. I don't care." He rolled toward her. "I'm not expecting perfect. I'm just expecting honest." "I can do honest." "Then we're fine." They lay there facing each other in the dark, and slowly, carefully, Eleanor reached out and took his hand again, like she needed the connection but wasn't sure it was allowed. Lucas held on. "For what it's worth," Eleanor said quietly, "I'm glad it was you, that night in the bar. I'm glad I found you and not someone else." "Me too. Even though I basically bought you? You saved Emma. Everything else is just details." Eleanor was quiet for a moment. Then, "I love her already. Your sister. She's exactly the kind of person the world needs more of, brave and stubborn and real. When she gets better, when this is all over, I want to help her. College, career, whatever she wants. Not because of our arrangement, because she deserves it." Lucas felt his throat tighten. "You don't have to." "I know, but I want to. She's family now, your family, which makes her mine too." Eleanor's voice was soft in the darkness. "I've never had family before, not really. It's terrifying." "Welcome to the club." They fell asleep like that, hands linked, facing each other in the dark. And for the first time in longer than Lucas could remember, he wasn't afraid of what tomorrow would bring. The next 3 months passed faster than seemed possible. Emma completed her treatment in Germany and came home in September, cancer-free and determined to make up for lost time. She enrolled in online high school classes, started writing articles for a teen health blog, and moved into the penthouse full-time because hotels are depressing and you guys have that huge TV. Eleanor and Lucas settled into something that resembled a real marriage. They had dinner together most nights. They argued about stupid things like whether the thermostat should be set to 72 or 74. They fell asleep tangled together and woke up to alarms that were always too early. It wasn't perfect. Eleanor still worked too much. Lucas still worried too much. But it was real. In October, the board officially forced Robert Hawthorne to resign after an internal investigation revealed he'd been using company resources for personal investments. Marcus Webb disappeared, presumably to investigate someone else's life. The merger proposal was voted down 11-1, and Voss Industries stock jumped 8% on the news. Emma gained weight, her hair started growing back, and her laugh returned, loud and frequent and completely inappropriate. She started calling Eleanor Ellie just to annoy her, and Eleanor pretended to hate it, but Lucas noticed she'd started answering to it. In December, almost exactly 1 year after Lucas had woken up in a penthouse he didn't recognize, the contract officially expired. Lucas and Eleanor sat in the living room with the dissolution papers Diana had prepared so many months ago spread out on the coffee table. "So," Eleanor said, "this is it. 1 year, you're officially free." Lucas looked at the papers, then at Eleanor. "What if I don't want to be free?" "Then don't sign." "What about you? Do you want me to sign?" Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up the papers, walked to the fireplace, and dropped them in. They caught fire immediately, curling and blackening. "I think that answers your question," she said. Lucas crossed to her, pulled her close, kissed her like he'd been wanting to all day. So we're doing this? Actually married? No contract? No end date? Looks like it. Eleanor smiled against his mouth. Think you can handle being married to me permanently? I survived a year. I can probably manage longer. Probably? Let me check with Emma first. She has opinions about everything. As if summoned, Emma appeared in the doorway, holding her phone. I heard my name. Are you two being gross again? We're destroying legal documents, Eleanor said. Very serious business. Emma looked at the burning papers, then at them, then grinned. Oh my God, you're keeping him. Ellie, you're such a sap. Don't call me that. Too late. It's locked in now. Emma crossed to them, inserting herself between them in a hug. So I guess you're officially my sister now. Not fake sister, real sister. Eleanor's arms came around both of them. I guess I am. Good, because I already bought you a Christmas present and I don't have a receipt. They stood there in front of the fireplace, the three of them together, while the last remnants of the contract burned away to nothing. Outside, snow was starting to fall over Manhattan, covering the city in white. The year was ending. A new one was beginning. 1 year later, Lucas stood in the same spot by those same windows and watched Emma run across the lawn of the house they'd bought in Connecticut. She was chasing a dog, some ridiculous golden retriever puppy Eleanor had brought home one day despite having zero experience with pets. Emma was laughing, her hair long again and shining in the sun, her face bright with life and health and pure joy. Eleanor came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist and resting her chin on his shoulder. What are you thinking about? How different everything is from 2 years ago. Good different? Best different. Lucas turned in her arms to face her. I woke up married to a stranger and ended up with a family. Lucky you. Lucky us. Outside, Emma caught the dog and fell into the grass laughing. The puppy licked her face enthusiastically. She was alive, healthy, free. Everything they'd fought for, everything they'd risked, had been worth it for this moment. Eleanor took Lucas's hand and led him outside. They sat on the porch together while Emma and the dog played in the autumn sunshine. The city was an hour away, the penthouse was sold, and life had become something neither of them had expected, something better. I love you, Eleanor said quietly. I don't think I've actually said that out loud yet. You haven't, but I knew. How? Because you learned what Led Zeppelin was for Emma. Because you stopped working at 9 p.m. so we could have dinner together. Because you cried when Emma's scans came back clean. Lucas kissed her temple. Because you chose us over everything else. That's how I knew. I love you too, Emma called from the lawn, completely shameless. In case anyone was wondering, both of you, even though you're weird and gross together. You're supposed to pretend you can't hear us, Eleanor called back. I have super hearing. It's a post-cancer superpower. Emma stood, brushing grass off her jeans. Come on, losers, let's walk to the lake. The dog needs exercise, and I need to remind you both that I'm the best thing that ever happened to your marriage. She's not wrong, Lucas said quietly. No, Eleanor agreed. She's not. They walked down to the lake together, the three of them plus the ridiculous puppy. And Lucas thought about that night 2 years ago when he'd made a deal with a stranger to save his sister's life. He thought it was a sacrifice. A year of his freedom traded for Emma's future. But it hadn't been a sacrifice at all. It had been the beginning of everything that mattered. He'd woken up married to a stranger and found a partner. Found family. Found home. Sometimes the best things in life started with the worst decisions. Sometimes desperate choices led to unexpected grace. And sometimes the person you married for all the wrong reasons turned out to be exactly who you needed all along. Lucas took Eleanor's hand as they walked, and she squeezed back, that simple gesture that had come to mean everything. Together. That's what they'd promised that night on the balcony. Together through investigations and board meetings and cancer treatments and fear and hope and all the messy, complicated, beautiful parts of building a life. And together was exactly what they'd be. Not because a contract said so, not because circumstances forced them, but because they chose it. Every single day they chose each other. That was the real happy ending. Not perfection, not ease, just choice and love. And Emma running ahead with a ridiculous puppy, shouting for them to hurry up, laughing like she had forever ahead of her, which, finally, beautifully, she did.